Chapter 1922. After leaving the trial field of force, Han Fei went straight to the 33rd trial field. This trial field was called the 1,000 Opportunities Trial Field. As soon as Han Fei came in, he saw that this trial field was already densely surrounded by people. These people were all surprised by Xia Xiaochan's speed of breaking trials, so they specially came to watch. So what if the people of the 9 Palaces Heaven were smart? Being smart didn't mean being talented. Knowing that Xia Xiaochan broke a trial on average every day, it could be said that the entire 9 Palaces Heaven was shocked. It was a pity that not everyone could come and watch a trial of this difficulty. Han Fei came in and was surprised to find that this so-called 1,000 Opportunities trial field was actually a hidden weapon trial field. He saw Xia Xiaochan was flashing around in the trial field. In the air, rain-like water threads split apart and clashed with each other. Water threads, of course, were nothing. However, when each water thread collided with each other, it would be refracted, and the collision would produce 2 or 3 forces. When the whole field was full of water threads, even the inventor of the 1,000 Opportunities trial field couldn't estimate the movement trajectory of the water threads. If the water threads were allowed to collide with each other, in the end, unless people were not here, they would never be able to break this water thread array. However, the requirement to pass the test was that one couldn't break through this level by force. This made it seem that the trial takers were in a melee. In the melee, one could hear and see in all directions. It stood to reason that this level of array couldn't stop Xia Xiaochan at all. However, many of those strands of water were not simple strands of water. In fact, they could be regarded as a kind of array. When the water threads interacted with each other, a new array might be born. And if the trial takers tried to destroy the water threads at this time, they might be touched by the power that erupted from the array. Once an array was not well resisted, then it was easy to trigger a series of chain reactions. In the end, every strand of water could be a formation. At that time, this 1,000 Opportunities trial almost didn't need to be resisted, because there was no possibility of escaping. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan's figure moved quickly in the trial field. The 2 daggers in her hands almost turned into light threads. In such a short time, Xia Xiaochan had already broken more than 30 arrays. Among them, there was a raging wind formation that triggered the rhythm of the surrounding water threads, instantly creating hundreds of new water threads. Xia Xiaochan was fast enough to shatter the water threads before they could activate more arrays, but there were still a small number of them that escaped the net. This kind of exquisite trial had extremely high requirements for the trial takers. In fact, they didn't require you to consume much spiritual energy. However, the difficulty level was ridiculously high. Luo Xiaobai watched from the side, memorizing while watching. When Luo Xiaobai found that there was one more person beside her, she couldn't help but turn her head and take a look. When she saw Han Fei, she said seriously, "I don't think 1 year is enough." The 9 palace trials were indeed unique. This wasn't just a simple trial. This was a trial that unearthed the cultivator's potential. If I could cultivate here for 10 years. Han Fei shook his head. No, 10 years. Luo Xiaobai nodded slightly. But 1 year is still too short. Even if we let everyone go through all of these trials and experience them once, a year's time is still too short. Bam, bam, bam. In the array, around Xia Xiaochan, many water threads detonated, causing the surrounding water threads to tremble. The arrays detonated one after another, and Xia Xiaochan was forced to withdraw from this trial. Of course, Xia Xiaochan failed this time. This trial was not a problem of speed, but how to face so many complex attacks in the air in an instant. Phew! As soon as Xia Xiaochan came out, Han Fei heard everyone breathe a sigh of relief. The venerables of the 9 Palace Heaven were probably also shocked by Xia Xiaochan's terrifying speed of passing 1 trial a day. Therefore, Xia Xiaochan's failure gave them great confidence and they felt that their 1,000 Opportunities trial field was not bad. However, as soon as Xia Xiaochan came up, she glared at Han Fei and said, "It's all your fault. You distracted me." Han Fei, however, before Han Fei spoke, Luo Xiaobai said, "It's because this trial is very difficult. Xiaochan, you are good at speed and explosive power. If you can always maintain your high explosive power, you may be able to pass this trial. However, once you fail to pass the explosive power period, the speed at which you pass the trials is basically the same as the speed at which the arrays condense. Therefore, it's only a matter of time before you fail. Either you have to change your tactics, or you have to continue to strengthen your explosive power. Han Fei asked, "Girl, your Tao is not as simple as speed, right?" "Of course, speed is just the foundation of my Tao." There were too many people here, and Xia Xiaochan didn't want to talk about her Tao. So, she pushed Han Fei and said, "Go and have a try. These 42 trials of the 9 palaces shouldn't be a problem for you. Let me see how you pass them." Many onlookers were shocked. Young Master Han Fei, that is the captain of the Avenger. He is so powerful that he has killed several lords. If he comes to take the test, it will be an excellent learning opportunity. Luo Xiaobai's eyes also lit up. Xiaochan's suggestion is very good. If someone can provide a new idea for this method, maybe it can also greatly shorten the time. Many 9 palace heavenly powerhouses said, "Young Master Han Fei, have a try. You can also show us how to break the 1,000 revolution array." Han Fei smiled and said, "Then I'll have a try?" Xia Xiaochan's eyes lit up. "You go. Don't use the power of the Pioneer Sea realm. Otherwise, I'm afraid even I can't see it clearly." Han Fei looked at the 1,000 revolution array that was calming down. He tapped the ground with one foot and the next moment he appeared in the field. At this moment, knowing that it was Han Fei, someone immediately shouted, "Turn on the 1,000 revolution array to the highest difficulty." Someone said helplessly, "The highest difficulty is the one Her Highness just faced." Someone sighed. "I'm afraid the 1,000 revolution array is still a bit simple for young Master Han Fei. If only King Xian could use the 1,000 revolution array." As soon as Han Fei walked into the 1,000 revolution array, all the arrays were activated. For a time, dense water threads began to bounce off each other and draw arrays with each other. Han Fei's eyes were like torches. When he saw the water threads intertwine for the first time, he felt the array power contained in the water threads. After the water threads intertwined 3 times, an array was condensed. And in the field, hundreds of thousands of water threads were constantly appearing, and they could collide with each other. This meant that in every instant, thousands of arrays might be born. Even Han Fei couldn't help but admire the way this array was condensed. Its name, 1,000 Revolution, was really wonderful. However, in everyone's eyes, Han Fei didn't take action immediately. He waited until the water threads collided for the 3rd time before he chose to take action. Someone exclaimed, "Young Master Han Fei, aren't you a little too confident?" At this moment, thousands of arrays were condensing without interruption. And as more water threads appeared, the arrays would break out more frequently. How is he going to break them? Someone could still keep calm. Since young Master Han Fei made such a choice, there must be a reason. Let's just wait and see. Perhaps he just wants to try out the 1,000 opportunities trial first, to see what it is like. Seeing Han Fei standing still, Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but exclaim, "This state is much more difficult than the one I just had." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "No, it's a level more difficult. Although the difficulty you just had was already the highest level. However, he purposely increased the difficulty by another level." 2 knives appeared in Han Fei's hands, and he just twisted his body slightly to avoid these so-called water threads. Han Fei looked in the direction of Xia Xiaochan and Luo Xiaobai and said, "The main problem of this level is the continuous condensing of these arrays. As long as your speed of destruction is faster than the speed of the arrays condensing, you can really pass this level." In the outside world, even Han Xian was watching. The knives in Han Fei's hands moved like phantoms. The knife light wandered slightly on the arrays that were about to break out, and the arrays couldn't be triggered. However, the speed of Han Fei breaking the arrays was far slower than the speed of the arrays condensing. Han Fei said, "In fact, there are many ways to break this array. One is to be fast, but that requires one's own speed to reach the extreme. However, if your own speed is not so fast, you need to break the array by other means." The two knives in Han Fei's hands spun and directly attracted more than half of the water threads on the scene. Swish, 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 countless water threads intertwined with each other more than once in a split second. In an instant, at least dozens or even hundreds of water threads were intertwined. The more water threads intertwined, the more difficult the array was. But at that moment, Han Fei cut the void with his knives, opening a way for himself, and the others easily avoided it. The water droplets that condensed into a large array instantly collided with each other, and under the collision of the forces, they were annihilated. Han Fei smiled and said, "Think about it from another perspective. There are many ways to break the array." However, the corners of Luo Xiaobai's mouth trembled, and she said helplessly, "That's easy to say. There are few half-king realms who can achieve such control power as you." Xia Xiaochan shouted, "What else?" Hearing Xia Xiaochan's shout, Han Fei couldn't help but smile. "There's another one, which is even simpler and suitable for you." Han Fei raised his hand, and a mass of water appeared in his hand. This was not infinity water, but a mass of water. As Han Fei stretched out his hand and squeezed, this mass of water also turned into countless water threads. However, Han Fei didn't control them with his soul power. He turned these water threads into weapons and controlled them with spiritual energy. When the water threads intertwined again, Han Fei waved his hand backhandedly, and tens of thousands of water threads flashed out. Han Fei said, "The power of each water thread is different. These water threads are equivalent to hidden weapons. When 3 water threads are combined, the hidden weapons will be formed. Then we'll just have to destroy the hidden weapons before they form." Clank, clank, clank. Han Fei threw out tens of thousands of water threads, which instantly hit the hidden weapons that were about to condense into arrays. Most of the water threads on the field were destroyed in an instant. Xia Xiaochan frowned. "You have to completely control the void in this place to grasp such a large range of void nodes in an instant. Your difficulty isn't low either." Han Fei suggested, "Why don't you attach your power to your perception?" "Wow." Xia Xiaochan's eyes lit up and she blurted out, "Just like fishing? Use your perception to attack the moment you determine the void node." Luo Xiaobai was stunned. "I see." The venerables of the 9 palaces heaven were all stunned. Using perception as a net, spiritual energy or weapons as hooks, and thousands of water threads as swimming fish. This simple, violent cracking method was a bit too simple. However, these people didn't think of it. They just saw the difficulty in front of them. Suddenly, a voice sounded leisurely, "It's not that you can't think of it, but that you don't want to think of it. You want to use this 1,000 opportunities trial to achieve the effect of training yourself. And Han Fei doesn't need to train himself, so he doesn't have to worry about this." Who else could it be but Han Xian? Everyone came back to their senses, and the people of the 9 palaces heaven all saluted. "Greetings, King Xian." Han Xian waved his hand carelessly and then looked at Han Fei. "With your current strength and understanding of the Great Way, it's too easy for you to pass this trial. How about this? I'll use the 1,000 opportunities divine ghost disc and we'll fight again. 3 chapters. 3 chapters during the new year. I'm going to die. Tomorrow, I'll update more. As for how much I update, it depends on how much I can write by this time tomorrow. But don't keep the tickets. I'll give them to you today." End of this chapter. Chapter 1923. Han Fei had heard of the Qianji godly ghost disc several times, but until now, he had never seen that thing in action. Only when he met Han Xian for the first time did Han Fei feel the power of Han Xian's sword and see the strange box in his hand. In fact, Han Fei really wanted to find a king to fight with to measure how strong he was now. After all, when he dealt with Yu Meng and the others, he suppressed his opponents and killed them quickly. That was not a dogfight, so it couldn't show his true strength. Now, Han Xian was known to be able to fight anyone below the sky-opening realm. Han Fei felt that even if he used all his means, he might not be Han Xian's opponent. Besides, this battle was just to measure his true combat power. He didn't have to use his trump cards now. Therefore, this spar seemed to be quite interesting. Han Fei said, "That's good. I also want to see the terrifying power of the Qianji godly ghost disc." Han Fei said again, but where will we fight? Han Xian smiled slightly. We'll fight in the void, 100,000 kilometers away from here. It won't affect the 9-palace heaven. Han Fei nodded. Very good. When everyone heard that Han Xian and Han Fei were going to fight, their eyes lit up. A battle between kings was extremely rare. Especially in the 9-palace heaven, Han Xian was invincible. Who had seen Han Xian fight in person? Luo Xiaobai and the others were also shocked. This Han Xian didn't look simple. After experiencing the 9-palace trials, who didn't marvel at the person who invented these trials? His strength was terrifying, and his thoughts were ingenious. He was probably one of a kind. At this moment, Luo Xiaobai and the others were not new to the Venerable Realm. In the past few years in the chaotic ocean, they had been fighting and hunting day and night, and their eyesight and knowledge had also grown rapidly, especially their combat strength. Hearing that Han Fei was going to fight with Han Xian, they couldn't help but be curious. Although Han Fei was strong, in their opinion, Han Fei was invincible. Therefore, no one could measure Han Fei's strength at all. But Han Xian was different. He had been in charge of the 9-palace heaven for tens of thousands of years. No one would believe it. Han Xian raised one hand, and on the strange square box in his hand, some rectangular blocks bulged and shrank from time to time. Outside the trial grounds, a 1,000-meter-tall array tore through the sky, and a giant teleportation array appeared. Han Xian's voice resounded in the sky above the training grounds. Venerable ones can enter this formation. Those below the Venerable Realm are not allowed to enter to avoid accidental injuries. After saying that, Han Xian glanced at a few people in the crowd. You guys can go and inform them. A sea expansion battle is also extremely rare. Perhaps it can give others some insights. In reality, there was no need for Han Xian to say anything. Many people were walking out of the training grounds, as if they wanted to see what was happening outside. Han Fei glanced at Luo Xiaobai and the others. Let's inform Lu Renquang and Jade too. Xia Xiaochan nodded. Coming. Lu Renquang and Zhang Xuanyu also followed the others out of the trial field. Seeing this, he dashed to Luo Xiaobai's side. Zhang Xuanyu asked in surprise, what happened? Luo Xiaobai said, you can watch the competition between sea pioneers. Zhang Xuanyu's eyes lit up. Really? Good. Fei Fei should have fought a long time ago. Lu Renquang couldn't help but say, finally, we can see how strong Han Fei is. Up to now, it's still a mystery. Many people nodded after hearing this. Han Fei's strength had long been a mystery. He was so strong that he had no friends. When he killed the raiders, Han Fei's attack was still fresh in everyone's memory. With one sword, he destroyed a big ship and dozens of grand venerables. The crazy four kings didn't even dare to block him. When Han Xian and Han Fei entered the teleportation array one after another, the venerables also followed. After a moment, in the void, Han Xian said, this used to be the place where the divine palace of the 9-palace heaven was located. In the space gap, its endurance is completely able to withstand a sea expansion realm battle. Just let go. As he spoke, the Qinji godly ghost disc in Han Xian's hand had all kinds of bumps on it, and then he put it away. From the looks of it, it seemed like there were countless mechanisms being activated. The two were tens of thousands of kilometers apart, and a large number of venerables arrived one after another. However, some people's perception range wasn't so large, and they were relatively close. Someone shouted, don't get too close. When sea expansion realm experts fight, ordinary people can't resist even the residual power. Stand a little further away and watch. Han Xian and Han Fei provided this opportunity to watch the battle, but not everyone could see it. However, the two of them didn't care about this now. Han Xian said, Han Fei, if you can't bear it, tell me, lest I accidentally hurt you. Han Fei grinned and said, Uncle Xian, I'm afraid you can't hear me. Let's get started. Han Fei was confident that with his current physique, in the chaotic ocean, he was definitely in the top 5, if not invincible among the sea expansion realm experts. Who could surpass him? It could only be an old guy who had been refining his body for tens of thousands of years. Han Fei estimated that it was more likely that even if he used time, he couldn't build such an abnormal physique like himself. That was why he had the power to defeat the lords. Crack, crack, cracked. Han Fei had always been proud of his array skills, but in front of Han Xian he was indeed far inferior. All kinds of formations came crashing down from the sky like raindrops. At the same time, more than hundreds of arrays were born. However, Han Fei couldn't be distracted, because he found that, 1,000 kilometers in front of him, there was chaotic power in the void, condensing into a huge figure. The figure appeared extremely fast, as if it had appeared out of thin air. Han Xian said, "Nephew, the giant body you used before is quite extraordinary. Let's see who this is." When the giant completely appeared, Han Fei was speechless. Damn it, isn't this my firmament Dharma body? How did Han Xian learn it so quickly? No, it's fake. It's just the shape. Han Fei chuckled. Uncle Xian, you should pay attention to the battle. It's better if we don't take this kind of fake and inferior product out. Why don't you try? A golden light flashed on Han Fei's body, and in the next second, a golden light appeared in front of the giant. Han Fei raised his knife, and the spiritual energy in the void turned into a 100-meter-long giant blade in an instant, slashing backward. And the fake Dharma body stretched out its hands and pulled out 2 giant axes from the void. The axes were chopped down, shining with spiritual light and seeming to be able to split the world. Clang, the shocking power spread for thousands of kilometers in an instant. Luo Xiaobai and Jian Hui, who were close to it, all felt a powerful force coming at them. If they didn't have some strength, they might not even be able to stand still. Han Fei's face changed slightly. His Dharma body had been simulated by Han Xian and had already changed. These powers were all given to the Dharma body by Han Xian. In a sense, what Han Xian created was not a Dharma body, but a kind of combat skill. Because he was giving power to the Dharma body. And the real firmament Dharma body was a kind of independent power that was independent of the body. It could be separated from the caster and exist independently. This giant Dharma body blocked Han Fei's knife, but more than half of its body was obliterated. Just when Han Fei was about to throw another punch to kill the doppelganger, with a bang, the doppelganger shattered and turned into thousands of array lines. Han Fei felt that his whole body was suddenly shrouded in mist. All of a sudden, 8 giant Dharma bodies appeared, surrounding him, and 16 giant axes fell from the sky. Illusion? Han Fei was shocked. In the blink of an eye, the array lines that constructed the Dharma body turned into layers of illusions? With such strength, it would be a pity if Han Xian didn't go to Dream Sky and compete with Xia Zhiming for the position of Palace Master. Fuse. Han Fei was shrouded in black gas, and his aura became indifferent. There was no emotion in his black and white eyes. With a flip of his hand, the infinity water that Han Fei hadn't used for a long time came out of his body. However, at this moment, the infinity water was no longer used by Han Fei as a weapon, but condensed into array lines. In an instant, it penetrated the mist around him. When the mist exploded, before Han Fei could see the situation clearly, he heard Han Xian say, "You broke the trap pretty fast. However, you've given me too much time." As soon as Han Xian said that, the void cracks condensed into a storm, wrapping Han Fei up. Han Fei was slightly surprised. Can this 1,000 trickeries divine ghost plate even simulate spatial techniques? Swish. With another flash of golden light, Han Fei was directly out of the range of the storm. With a flip of his hand, he slashed. When the knife was slashed out, the void was shattered, and the void cracks were drawn into the endless void. The whole space returned to peace again. Han Fei was on the periphery of the void storm. What was waiting for Han Fei was sword chi and knife light. In addition to these 2 kinds of power, there were also whip shadows, sound waves, soul attacks, and illusions. For a moment, Han Fei saw hundreds of attacks, all of which were aimed at him. Shoot! Although Han Fei could continue to run away with the golden Dharma body, he couldn't always run away. This was just a competition. If he kept running away, how could he test his strength? The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Uncle Xian, a lot of attacks doesn't mean a strong attack. Han Fei didn't move, stretched out his hands to both sides, and let those terrifying forces hit him. Clang, clang, clang. Clang, clang, clang. Wow. What a strong physique. Young Master Han Fei, how did you cultivate such a strong physique? This is too terrifying. He resisted King Xian's attack with his physique alone? When Han Fei resisted Han Xian's countless attacks with his body, Zhang Xuanyu, Luo Xiaobai, and the others were all stunned. Zhang Xuanyu said, "That's too much." His physical body had already become so strong? Even a king can't beat him? Lu Renkuang nodded. He showed me the power of his body. It seems that in the future, no matter what level I reach, the cultivation of my body must be ranked first. Xia Xiaochan was speechless. Do I have to improve my body to the same level as him in cultivation? Li Kaitian was speechless. I wonder what that person in the Chaos Heavens will think after seeing his physique. On the Nine Palaces Heaven side, a large number of people revealed thoughtful expressions. Someone said, "Sure enough. In our judgment, body cultivators are the most difficult group to deal with. It can be seen from the battle between King Xian and young Master Han Fei. If it were an ordinary king, they would not be able to escape King Xian's control after being forced to this extent. In the end, young Master Han Fei resisted it with his physique. This battle is going to be a long one." Someone sighed. It's a pity that body cultivation has always been the most difficult system in our cultivation. So far, no one has been able to reach the peak of body tempering. If young Master Han Fei is willing to share the body tempering method, the strength of our Nine Palaces Heaven will probably improve greatly. Someone shook his head. Don't think about it. Young Master Han Fei's path cannot be copied. Besides, I heard that body tempering is formed through multiple opportunities and repeated experiences. Our Nine Palaces Heaven's trials are always lacking something. Many experts of the Nine Palaces Heaven fell silent. In fact, they had always known that no matter how rich the Nine Palaces Heaven's trials were, they were always lacking some real combat trials. This was because the experts of the Nine Palaces Heaven were all nurtured using the same method. Therefore, the battle between them was actually more or less the same. In terms of strength, they were rather evenly matched. Han Xian's method was more like a training method. The trained soldiers were of equal strength. At this moment, when tens of thousands of array formations bombarded Han Fei, he was completely ineffective. Han Fei smiled. "Uncle Xian, how about something more powerful? Let me see how strong my physique is." Han Xian nodded. "As you wish." The black box in Han Xian's hand began to spin slightly. On it, the protruding and shrinking giant squares became more and more frequent. It looked like it was about to explode if it continued to be activated. Han Xian said, "This is the first form of the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Disc. It wraps the enemy in layers with infinite array formations. In the end, all available power is extracted and the enemy is strangled by force." As soon as Han Xian finished explaining, Han Fei saw that the countless small arrays were gathering into a large array. Han Xian was not in a hurry. Little by little, dozens of small formations gathered together to form a medium-sized formation. Naturally, its might was much stronger. Of course, the power that erupted was still not enough to hurt Han Fei. Han Xian sighed slightly. Hundreds of arrays gathered again, dividing up the energy and spiritual energy in the void here. And at this time, the power that erupted had far exceeded the power of the most ordinary kings. Clanged him when a sword chi stabbed at him. The sword chi was finally shattered. Han Fei retreated 100 meters, and a bloody mark appeared on his chest. Under this sword chi, Han Fei felt not only the power of this sword chi, but also the Taoist aura contained in this sword chi. Han Fei suddenly understood that such an experiment actually couldn't test his true strength. Because everyone's Tao was different, the results would be different. For example, some people were strong, but their Tao was not good at fighting. It was very likely that they couldn't break his physique. Another example, some people were weak, but their Tao was good at fighting. It was very likely that they could break his physique. Han Xian obviously didn't exert his full strength. After tens of thousands of years of accumulation, Han Xian might have relied on the Qinji Divine Ghost Disc, but he also had his own means. Therefore, Han Xian's true strength couldn't be denied. The Qinji Divine Ghost Disc was strong, but if Han Xian wasn't strong, how could he hurt Han Fei? Han Xian said, "Being able to take this sword strike of mine, your strength can already be ranked in the top 30 of the Pioneer Sea realm in the chaotic universe. However, it's not enough. The stronger the strength, the gap between each rank is not small. Next, I will use the combat power of the top 20 to fight with you. Look, the second form of the Qinji Divine Ghost Disc." In Han Xian's hand, the Qinji Divine Ghost Disc disappeared. Instead, a black battle suit appeared on Han Xian's body. From head to toe, from his eyes to his fingers, he was covered tightly. In an instant, Han Xian rushed thousands of kilometers away. He raised his hand, and 100 layers of array shadows condensed on his fist, intending to fight Han Fei in close combat. Han Fei naturally wouldn't refuse. The combat power of the top 20 of the Pioneer Sea realm? He hadn't really experienced it yet. Under this blow, Han Fei was blasted thousands of kilometers away in an instant, feeling that his arm was almost broken. "No, I have to use the power of the laws. Otherwise, I won't be on the same level at all." Han Fei's momentum soared, and his strength soared nearly 3 times. As for Han Xian, it was as if he was ready to fight, as he punched out again. This time, Han Fei's strength soared, so he naturally wouldn't be blown away by a single blow. Han Fei stood in place, motionless, and the void behind him broke again, showing the connection between the real world and the endless void. Han Fei punched back with 80% of his strength. 80% of Han Fei's strength was nearly 400,000 waves. But as soon as he punched, Han Xian opened one hand, and there seemed to be thousands of arrays turned into one. Han Xian was knocked back 100 meters by the punch and said with a smile, "Remember what I said? Strength doesn't mean everything. Your strength is indeed strong, but I disintegrated it to less than 200,000 waves. You can't break my laws. How can you win with your strength?" Han Fei was shocked. According to this situation, even if he attacked with all his strength, Han Xian would only have 250,000 waves. He didn't exert his full strength, but when did Han Xian use his full strength? Since he was able to receive the attack so easily, he probably had at least 50% of his strength that he hadn't used yet. The most important thing was that the power of the Qinji Divine Ghost Board was too strong. He could easily create thousands or even tens of thousands of arrays. These arrays, when combined at will, would create different powers at will according to Han Xian's will. If Han Xian could master enough formations, he would be able to simulate almost any formation spell that he could see. Although it was just a simulation, it was just a simulation. However, Han Fei could simulate anything. Just this alone was freakish enough. At this point, the Venerables actually couldn't understand the power of the two sides. They even felt that this battle was not as exciting as just now. However, they didn't expect that this seemingly plain melee battle would erupt with power several times stronger than before. After a while, Han Fei shouted, "Uncle Xian, what do you think of the strength of the top 10? Han Xian smiled and said, "Watch carefully." Qilu. Han Xian grabbed the electric arc and struck out with a spear. The lightning arc was so strong that it left thousands of electric arc patterns in the void. This also seemed to be very ordinary. However, Han Fei looked as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Han Fei used the draw technique backhand. As a result, the blade condensed by the infinity water was directly shattered. Han Fei was knocked back dozens of kilometers in an instant. Han Fei's hands trembled slightly, and the web between his thumb and index finger was torn. Han Xian said, "The top 10 of the Sea Expansion realm may not be as good as you in terms of pure power. However, the power displayed through the laws can knock you back. This shows that the Tao you walk is more meaningful than your power. This also shows that the top 10 origin seas are not weak. After all, they can breed such powerful forces." After the lightning spear, Han Xian's combat form changed again. He was still wearing the same black armor. In his hand, Han Xian casually picked up a battle axe condensed by an array. It didn't look like one. However, when the giant axe was held in Han Xian's hand, Han Fei felt a violent killing intent. Han Xian jumped up, held the axe with both hands, and chopped down vertically. His strength might not have reached 400,000 waves. However, Han Fei knew that if he resisted this blow, he would be instantly split in half. Han Fei immediately launched the Dao Convergent Sword. Rumble. In an instant, the two of them were blasted tens of thousands of kilometers away. In the battlefield, the endless void was blasted out. The onlookers were dumbfounded by the appearance of the 1,000-kilometer hole. Gulp. Shui Ran exclaimed, "Damn! What kind of strength does he have to exert such terrifying power?" Jian Hui said, "Captain's combat power is probably among the top 10 of the sea expansion realm. I once saw a teacher cut out such a large endless void with a single sword strike." Mu Shui Cc asked, "Really?" Jian Hui, "Don't be kidding. That's the power of opening the sky." Lu Ran nodded. "Yes." Jian Hui said, "Of course it's not teacher's full strength. However, I'm afraid that ordinary sea expansion realm cultivators can't compete with them. I estimate that the strength of these two people has probably entered the top 20 of the sea expansion realm in the chaotic Azure Sea." Top 20? Many people looked at each other in surprise. Wasn't this the top power of the chaotic Azure Sea? However, Jian Hui didn't know. His estimation was still a bit conservative. Their current strength had already reached the top 10 of the sea expansion realm. Han Xian was shaken back and instantly rushed back. So did Han Fei. The two collided 7 or 8 times in a row. Han Xian said, "This is the third form of the 1,000 Trickeries Divine Ghost Disc. Han Fei, do you still have other means? If this is your strongest attack, then let's call it a day. There are some special combat methods that you don't need to use here." Han Fei thought for a while and nodded slightly. "Then let's stop here." Han Xian knew that Han Fei still had trump cards. However, trump cards were trump cards, and they couldn't be taken out casually. As such, Han Xian's words marked the end of the sparring session. Han Xian sighed. Han Fei's physique was really strong, and his strength was really great. As soon as he used the power of the Great Path, he could easily crush many sea expansion realm cultivators. If Han Fei was given another 10,000 years to cultivate, oh no, as long as he cultivated for another 1,000 years, his strength would probably be greatly improved again. At that time, Han Fei's strength would not only firmly stand in the top 10. If his trump cards were taken into account, he might even be able to enter the top 5. Maybe. In the spectator stands, everyone witnessed a sparring match that was not flashy at all, but the level of power was beyond imagination. This made everyone feel that the sea expansion realm was really strong. However, most people didn't know that ordinary sea expansion realm cultivators couldn't be so strong. After the competition, Han Xian and Han Fei took everyone back to the 9 Palace Heaven. The uncle and nephew immediately went to drink tea. Han Fei couldn't help but say, "The 1,000 Trickeries Divine Ghost Disc is really extraordinary. I want to know, are those armor and axes transformed from the 1,000 Trickeries Divine Ghost Disc?" Han Xian only knew that Han Fei was going to ask, but he still shook his head and said, "Of course not. They are just mid-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasures." Han Fei was shocked. "Only mid-quality?" Han Xian explained, "This is the power of the 1,000 Trickeries Divine Ghost Disc. It can spread the power of combat methods all over the battle suits and weapons, immediately raising them to the ultra-quality level or even higher." Han Fei's eyes flickered. "Uncle Xian, is it difficult to make this 1,000 Trickeries Divine Ghost Disc?" Han Xian grinned and said, "Why, do you want it? Pa, I won't keep it to myself. In just 20,000 years, I can make another one. However, you still need to learn and master the basic reserves of 100,000 arrays." Han Fei. Chapter 1924. 20,000 years? The corners of his mouth twitched. Learning array formations and storing some up was nothing. Although he had less than 5,000 arrays in reserve, it wouldn't take long for him to learn 100,000. In any case, he had time acceleration. However, it took 20,000 years to create a Qianji godly ghost plate? Who the hell could wait for 20,000 years? Han Fei shook his head quickly. Forget it. 20,000 years is too long. I'll seize every minute. Han Xian said, "Young man, don't be so impatient. After all, Uncle didn't split open the sky. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken so long. Will you think about it? You are fully capable of inheriting my legacy." Han Xian tried to persuade him, but Han Fei refused. What if he really spent 20,000 years? I have already split open the heavens. Just when Han Fei was about to refuse, he suddenly thought of something. Actually, it seemed not impossible. Han Xian might have taken a long time to create the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Disc. However, the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghosts board was simply too powerful. With this item in hand, the grade of the weapon in his hand immediately soared. It could strengthen one's attack, defense, and speed. Anything that could be used by a spell formation could be used by the Thousand Trickeries God Ghosts disc. To put it bluntly, this thing was a great killing weapon. Having one was like having an army of millions. If a venerable realm expert was able to fully display the power of the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost board, then the power inside the cage would probably be enough to sweep through everything by himself. However, at the end of the day, it was just an auxiliary weapon, an item that could be fused with formations. Since it was a weapon that he couldn't make, what about the Demon Purification Pot? Now, the fifth vine of the Demon Purification Pot had just returned. Would it be possible to forge even stronger weapons? Han Fei couldn't help but suspect that no matter how good he was at refining, it was impossible for him to surpass the Demon Purification Pot in a short time. What if the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost board could be refined? Wouldn't he be making a huge profit? Han Fei immediately said, "Uncle Xian, I don't think we should refine the Thousand Trickeries disc for 20,000 years. Besides, I'm still young. It's better if I refine this Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost disc myself. This way, we can also see through the mysteries within, don't you think so?" Han Xian immediately smiled and said, "You refine it yourself?" It was not impossible. Although it might take a little longer, you are still young after all. Nephew, how old are you now? Let's see if you can catch up in this life. Tens of thousands of years? Han Fei couldn't help but frown. He thought to himself, counting the time acceleration, I'm probably hundreds of years old. Han Fei didn't really want to discourage Han Xian, but he said, "Well, Uncle Xian, I can't really remember his age either. Han Xian, just give me a rough idea." Han Fei sighed. "I'm afraid I'm 500 years old." Han Xian sprayed a mouthful of tea on Han Fei's face. "Han Xian?" Han Xian cried out involuntarily, "How old?" Han Fei thought to himself, "It seems that I have to tell others that I'm a little older in the future." Han Xian was bewildered, muttering, "Opening the sea at 500 years old? Isn't such talent unique throughout the ages?" Gurgle. Immediately, Han Xian suddenly stood up and pulled Han Fei up. "Let's go. Nephew, you are so talented. How can you not learn the 9 Palaces Strange Technique and the 10,000 Arrays Technique?" Han Fei said, "Uncle Xian, I think you'd better teach me the method of making the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Plate." Han Xian sighed. "If you want to refine the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Plate, how can you not know the 9 Palaces 10,000 Arrays Technique? With your talent, you should be able to learn it very quickly." Han Fei only had time to say to Luo Xiaobai via voice transmission, "You lead everyone to cultivate first. I have to cultivate in seclusion for a while." Before Luo Xiaobai had time to respond, Han Fei had disappeared. 2 years later, Han Fei was trapped in a 9 Palaces Divine Pagoda. In this pagoda, Han Fei seemed to be in the Star Ocean Array technique. Every day, tens of thousands of arrays appeared. They were all what Han Fei needed to memorize and learn. In fact, in the first 3 months, Han Fei had memorized as many as 100,000 arrays. In the following time, Han Fei was actually studying the fusion, combination, and restriction of arrays. In Han Xian's words, if he wanted to refine the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Plate, He first had to know how to fuse multiple arrays. Only when one's heart was enlightened, as if all 10 fingers were connected to one's heart, could it be triggered in an instant and activate the unpredictable power of the Qianji godly ghost board. Han Fei had already fused arrays on a small scale. He could condense the arrays into a line and connect them with each other. However, the art of formation was too complicated. There were too many basic arrays. Large-scale arrays were particularly difficult to fuse. After being trapped for 2 years, Han Fei could at most fuse more than 50 arrays in an instant, which was far from Han Xian's ability to fuse 100 arrays in an instant, let alone 1,000 arrays. On this day, everyone in the 9 palaces heaven was in their daily cultivation and trials. Suddenly, above the divine pagoda, there was a sword piercing the sky, and many people stopped to look at it. Swish! At the top of the pagoda, a golden light flashed, and Han Fei appeared on the top of the pagoda. As soon as Han Fei came out, he saw Han Xian was tasting tea. Han Fei couldn't help saying, "Uncle Xian, why are you willing to let me out? If you don't let me out, I'll have to come out by myself." Han Xian said, "Han Fei, don't be impatient when cultivating this Tao. The fusion of 100 arrays is the foundation of running the 1,000 trickeries godly ghost plate. However, I gave you the opportunity to come out today because there are some things I need to let you know." "What is it?" Han Xian handed a jade slip to Han Fei. The contents of the jade slip were like newspapers. It recorded the events in the chaotic vast sea within a month. Han Fei scanned with his perception, and soon one thing caught his attention. The intelligence said that the savage abyss was shaking. Bei Luochen went there in person but couldn't enter, so he returned. After seeing this message, Han Fei's heart sank. Only a few years have passed? It hasn't even been 8 years, and the savage abyss is already in turmoil? Could it last until the opening of the Imperial Palace? Han Fei said solemnly, "Uncle Xian, it's not that I don't want to, but I really don't have much time. The fusion of 100 arrays is only a matter of time for me. But my time can't be completely wasted here." Han Xian sighed slightly. It's not too difficult to learn the 9 palaces' 10,000 arrays when you already have the foundation of arrays. The difficult part is to fuse the arrays and construct them at will. It's not realistic to keep you in the 9 palaces heaven. It's time for you to leave. However, remember what I said. Even if the Grand Pure One and the Wuji heaven divide the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven, so what? As long as you grow up, there will be great things to do. Don't be arrogant. That won't be worth the loss. Han Fei nodded slightly. "Thank you for your teachings, Uncle Xian." Han Fei scanned the arrays with his perception. "All members of the Avenger, return to your positions." Han Fei's voice sounded in everyone's ears. Hearing Han Fei's voice again after 2 years, the people who were in the trial knew that time was up. Originally, Han Fei said he would only stay in the 9 palaces heaven for a year. How much they could get here depended on themselves. However, in fact, this time was extended to about 2.5 years. But even so, everyone still felt that time was not enough. Even though they had been taking trials day and night, Xia Shaochan was the only one who had passed all the 42 trials. The one who had passed the most trials was not the half-lords, but Luo Xiaobai. In the early stage, Luo Xiaobai didn't go to the trial at all but followed Xia Shaochan to record and study them one by one. Now, she had completed 31 trials of the 9 palaces and ranked second on the Avenger, 2 more than Song Kaiyuan. Swish, swish, swish. When figures appeared under the tower, Han Fei's perception scanned and found that half of them had made a breakthrough. Even Lu Renquang and Luo Xiaobai had entered the peak-level Venerable Realm. However, thinking about it, it was only because they were cultivating the stainless profound body that they were able to slow down in the first place. With enough resources, it was only natural for them to enter the peak-level Venerable Realm. Even if some people didn't make a breakthrough, their fundamental strength had definitely been greatly improved. Han Fei said, "It's been more than 2 years. I've given you enough time. I can see that in the past 2 years, your growth has been very significant. But this is far from enough." Lu Renquang muttered, "The main reason is that all the resources have been consumed. Otherwise, they would have been raised to another level. Han Fei smiled slightly. Today, we will leave the Nine Palace Heaven. In the chaotic sea, countless enemies are waiting for us. So, we can't stay here for long. Everyone, enter my origin sea. The people brought by Han Fei were all extremely powerful in terms of comprehension and strength. It could be said that they were the top group of people in the Waterwood Heaven, the Yin-Yang Heaven, and the Cage Heaven. If they hadn't completed the Nine Palaces trial in more than 2 years, they probably wouldn't have finished it in a short time. After a moment, when everyone entered the origin sea, they saw Yin and Yen were still outside. Yen was pulling Yin and said, "We came together, so let's go together. If you stay here, no one will play with me." Yin smiled slightly. "Yen, I know you are very talented. As long as you are willing, I'm afraid it will only take you a few years to enter the Half-King realm. I won't even be surprised if you transcend the tribulation and reach the sea expansion realm. But I'm different. Since I know I can't transcend the tribulation and reach the sea expansion realm, I won't be of much help. My brother is outside, and I have to stay inside." Before Nyen could persuade him, said, "Brother, aren't you going to leave your incarnation?" Han Fei smiled bitterly and murmured, "If I leave my incarnation, I will naturally become the young master of the Nine Palace Heaven. At that time, I will really have time to study the array and experience the trial. If I have time in the future, I will come back with my real body. It's a great opportunity to synchronize the comprehension of both sides." Han Fei asked, Are you really going to stay?" Yin nodded. "Brother, what senior sister Xiaobai and Uncle Xian said is correct. In any case, the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven are not the key, but you. I will stay, and your incarnation. At the same time, I also need another way to grow." Han Fei looked at Han Xian. Han Xian smiled slightly. "Don't look at me. I'm a grown-up girl. I have my own ideas." Han Fei sighed slightly. "That's fine. Nyen, enter my origin sea." At this moment, Nin had also grown up and become a slim and graceful girl. She couldn't help but pout. Han Fei said, "Don't act cute. Hurry up." Humph, after Nyen chatted with him for a while, she had no choice but to enter the origin sea. At this moment, Han Xian said, "Han Fei, don't be impulsive when you go out this time. Uncle, I have one more thing to tell you. I have news from the Silver Moon Heaven." Half a day later, on the high tower of the Nine Palace Heaven, Han Xian and Han Fei's incarnation were having a drink. Han Fei handed over a jade slip. "Uncle Xian, I wonder if this can help you reach the sky expansion realm?" Han Xian couldn't help but be puzzled, but when he scanned it with his perception, the corners of his mouth suddenly cracked and he laughed. "Ha, stinking brat, you're actually hiding this divine art from your uncle, and you're only telling me about it now. I really want to beat you up." In the chaotic azure sea, when Han Fei returned to this place again, he didn't immediately let everyone out of the origin sea. The Nine Palace Heaven was the greatest opportunity Han Fei had encountered in the chaotic azure sea apart from the martial emperor city. But considering that it was his family's palace and he met his uncle, this kind of opportunity was purely luck. After leaving the Nine Palace Heaven, Han Fei's body flashed with a golden light and he appeared hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. He had stayed in the inner sea for a long time. Now that the savage abyss was in turmoil, it was time for him to go to the outer sea. In fact, not only the crew of the Avenger had consumed a lot of resources in the past 2 years, but even Han Fei himself had consumed an astronomical figure. Although he had raided the Medicine King Sky's treasury and obtained countless treasures and resources, he had used a third of the resources to strengthen his origin sea, almost turning it into an immortal paradise. Another 1/3 of the resources were around the demon purification pot, only for the fifth vine to devour energy, so that the second divine elixir would mature. Although this batch of resources was not consumed quickly, Han Fei would not use them, because they were the source of power for his second divine elixir. The remaining 1/3 of the resources were used to expand the origin sea. His origin sea was already very exquisite, with mountains, lakes, seas, the essence of the earth veins, spirit stone mines, and spiritual veins. But no matter how exquisite it was only 12,000 kilometers in diameter, which was too small. Since talking with Han Xian last time and knowing that the size of the Origin Sea was indeed one of the important sources of strength in the Pioneer Sea state, Han Fei did not stop and had been expanding the Origin Sea in the past 2 years. Now, under the consumption of a huge amount of resources. The size of the Origin Sea had reached 30,000 kilometers, but the resources in Han Fei's hands were almost used up. It was not that the resources he plundered from the Medicine King Heaven were not enough, nor that the resources he plundered were not plentiful enough, but that the resources were used up too quickly. Swish, swish above the boundless sea, if someone could see it, they would find that every 200,000 kilometers or so, there would be a flash of golden light. The speed was so fast that they could travel millions of kilometers in a moment, which was a miracle. One day later, near the barbaric abyss, on a big ship of the Gale pirates, Han Fei stood alone. In front of Han Fei, an advanced venerable said in horror, "My lord, what I said is true. The barbaric abyss is indeed trembling, but it's far from the level of entry. It is said that Bei Luochen broke in personally, but he couldn't pass through the barrier. In the end, he was forced to walk out and returned in anger." Han Fei said leisurely, "Tell me something I don't know. For example, do you know where your captain is?" The venerable was horrified. Was Han Fei going to kill his boss? However, at the moment of life and death, who would be willing to die just to hide their whereabouts? He said, "My lord, the barbaric abyss has been turbulent recently. Now that everyone knows that there may be a problem here, everyone who pays attention to this place knows that it's dangerous. It is said that none of the top 10 pirate groups came in person this time. All they did was send a fleet of ships to come here. And the number of venerables is limited." Through the vibration of this person's soul, Han Fei knew that this person was not lying. However, to be honest, the strength that he had shown was already not comparable to that of ordinary pirate group leaders. Although the pirate group leaders were also kings, they were not worth mentioning compared to super powerhouses like Bei Luochen of the Wuji Heaven. Therefore, except for those who were clear that they would definitely oppose Han Fei, there were not many people who really paid attention to this place this time. Of course, Han Fei would not go to the central area of the barbaric abyss in person because there was no need. Even if he went, he would not be able to return. If he encountered an ambush, the strength of the person who came must be extraordinary. If there was a heaven-opening realm powerhouse, it would not be easy to deal with. Sure enough, Han Fei soon found that there was still a big ship of the Wuji Heaven. There were more than 30 half-king realm powerhouses on the ship. Bait. At this time, there were still people from the Wuji Heaven. They were probably bait, waiting for him to kill them so that he could catch a turtle in a jar. However, Han Fei suddenly grinned. With his temper, even if he knew it was a trap, he might still fall for it. And now, he had learned the golden light movement technique. Even if there was a heaven-opening realm powerhouse ambushing him, so what? Could a heaven-opening realm powerhouse outrun the golden light movement technique? On the big ship of the Wuji Heaven, a young man stood at the bow. Behind him, he said, "Captain, we have been waiting here for almost half a month. Will Han Fei really come?" The young man shook his head. "I'm not sure. This person is arrogant. It's hard to say whether he will come or not. I hope he will come. If he succeeds, he will have a bright future." Someone said, "Captain, in my opinion, the Avenger probably doesn't dare to come. Otherwise, why hasn't he shown up in the barbaric abyss?" The young man sighed slightly. "Whether he comes or not, we can't slack off anyway. Maybe the Patriarch has other arrangements." Suddenly, this person felt that the spiritual energy and energy within 1,000 kilometers around him almost disappeared in an instant. He quickly came back to his senses and saw a void-breaking sword light rushing over. The terrifying sword shadow swept across half of the sea, and all kinds of power of the great path were hidden in it. The young man hurriedly crushed a jade slip. "Patriarch, Patriarch! He's here, he's here!" Then, the young man shouted, "Quick, activate the ship formation." After that, the young man threw out another jade slip without hesitation. This jade slip shattered in the void and turned into a huge figure. The figure had white hair. The moment it appeared, it narrowed its eyes and pointed. Wuji Black Moon Wheel. Han Fei's pupils constricted. A blow from a heaven-opening realm powerhouse? Humph! In the void, Han Fei's figure emerged and he shouted, Wuji old dog, even if you come with your real body, you can't protect all the people on this ship. Swish. Han Fei didn't even look at the Tao Convergence sword and Bei Luoqin's black moon. With a swish, his figure disappeared, and then with a flash of golden light, he appeared on the big ship of the Wuji heaven. The moment he landed on the ship, more than 30 clones of Han Fei landed. Seeing this scene, the young half-king couldn't help but be terrified. How could this person be so fierce? How dare he show off on the ship in front of the patriarch? As Han Fei slashed out, the whole ship was annihilated in an instant, and all the venerables on the ship exploded and died. No one survived. Rumble. When Han Fei killed everyone on this ship, a terrifying explosion set off boundless huge waves. At this time, Bei Luoqin's phantom turned around and tried to stop Han Fei. Han Fei scooped up the sun-moon shellfish from these people, merged with his clone, and slapped Bei Luoqin with a backhand. Bimch, however, after Han Fei's slap came into contact with Bei Luoqin's attack, he actually managed to resist it for a moment. This made Han Fei smile involuntarily. It seemed that Bei Luoqin was not so invincible. As a heaven-opening realm powerhouse, even if it was just a clone, the blow that contained the Tao was not something that Han Fei could resist with one blow. But in fact, Han Fei could resist it a little with his strength alone, which meant that Bei Luoqin was not invincible. He just had the advantage of being in a higher realm. Suddenly, Han Fei pinched his fingers subconsciously. He knew that someone was coming. At this time, Bei Luoqin's projection was also about to dissipate. It was already very rare for a projection to launch 2 attacks, which broke his Tao Convergence sword, and to resist Han Fei's blow head-on, which was already extremely powerful. At this moment, Han Fei looked sideways and saw a figure appear in the void more than 800,000 kilometers away and disappear in a flash. The moment their eyes met, Han Fei sneered in the void. Bench, old bastard, I'm here to tell you what I want to say. If you dare to touch my Yin-Yang heaven, I'll slaughter your Wuji heaven. If you dare to try, let's have a try. As soon as he said that, Han Fei's body glowed with golden light, and with a leap, he appeared hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. After a while, he saw a figure breaking through the void. When this person broke through the void, blue light intertwined and the void changed, and his body also stabilized a few times. This should be what the old turtle said. In this world, there was a limit to the limit of speed. This old man came too fast. Bei Luoqin looked around, but he didn't see Han Fei at first. He had searched the surrounding 300,000 kilometers, but Han Fei was not there. Listening to Han Fei's words, Bei Luoqin narrowed his eyes and didn't speak for a long time. Chapter 1925. Although the barbaric abyss was turbulent, nothing happened, but Han Fei still came to the Martial Emperor city as soon as possible. With Han Fei's current speed, he could cross the outer domain and the inner domain in a day if he wanted to. In the Martial Emperor city, Han Fei went straight to the intelligence center, not caring if he was seen. He was there to listen to the intelligence. In the inner room of the intelligence center, Han Fei said, I want to know about the anomaly in the barbaric abyss this time. Yen Meng said with a smile, no problem. 3 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei threw out a 5th-grade Tao pattern pill and asked, is that okay? Yen Meng nodded. Yes. A fish skin map fell in front of Han Fei. Han Fei took a look at it and was relieved. Everything was fine. It mentioned that Bei Luoqin went to the barbaric abyss in person and tried to descend as a projection, but after half a month, he didn't find anything. In fury, Bei Luoqin attacked the abyss several times and was swallowed by the Yin-Yang giant millstone. Seeing that his attacks didn't work, he sat outside the barbaric abyss. Han Fei knew what was going on when he saw the news. Bei Luoqin was too naive to think that he could descend as a projection. Chun Huangdian had done that too, but he was only an explorer who could really descend to that place. Han Fei didn't know if Bei Luoqin was stronger than Chun Huangdian, but it was impossible to shake the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven with a clone. No matter how weak the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven were, they had more than one king. How could they be afraid of a mere projection? Han Fei didn't care about that at all. Han Fei smiled after reading the intelligence. Does the Martial Emperor City have any idea about when the yin-yang heaven will appear? If you do, how much? Yen Meng said, this can't be counted as intelligence, and the Martial Emperor City can't see through the barbaric abyss either. Han Fei nodded. That was fine. Once he left the barbaric abyss, he would know nothing about it. He had no idea what the cracks in the cage were. He didn't even dare to go in again. Otherwise, the structure of the cage would be affected and the cage would be broken sooner, which would harm the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven. After leaving the intelligence center, Han Fei came to the tower. Han Fei said, "Is Senior King Wu here?" Buzz, an illusory figure appeared. It was King Wu. His true body had yet to appear, and even Han Fei could not see the king of Martial Emperor City at any time. It was already a great honor for Han Fei to send out a phantom. King Wu's voice was unhurried. "Are you ready to request a second thing from Martial Emperor City?" Han Fei said straightforwardly, "I want to know one thing. Can Martial Emperor City protect Xia Xiaochan?" Xia Xiaochan had been in the half-monarch realm for a long time. She had stayed in the Source Sea with him for more than 300 years, cultivating and visualizing day and night. Whether it was her physique, soul, or combat power, she had reached the limit of the half-monarch realm. The reason why Xia Xiaochan could break through the 42 levels of the 9-palace heaven so easily was that she had reached the limit of this realm. Now, Xia Xiaochan was in the same situation as Han Fei, and the energy in her body was a little too much. Xia Xiaochan had told Han Fei about this a long time ago, and she was ready. But Han Fei felt a little uneasy, not because of the lack of resources, but because he felt that it might not be easy to pass the tribulation here, so he came to ask the Martial King. Originally, Martial Emperor City owed him 3 things. Now that one had been completed, there were only 2 left. Normal people would think that Martial Emperor City would gladly accept it. After all, it was a breakthrough in the territory of Martial Emperor City. Who would dare to make trouble? However, the Martial King pondered for a moment and said, "No." Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. But the Martial King said lightly, "Specifically, when you return to Martial Emperor City, Chen Huangdian said something to me. He said that one day you will come back to me and protect Princess Mingzhu. However, the first 8 tribulations are easy to pass, but the 9th is difficult. This tribulation is the mental demon tribulation. There are 2 parts to this tribulation. One is to strangle God's Bane Heaven, and the other is to revive her mother. God's Bane Heaven is secondary. It can be temporarily suppressed and planned for another day. However, the revival of her mother is closely related to Princess Mingzhu, so she has to do it." Han Fei couldn't help but frown. "You mean she must return to the mermaid royal family to pass the tribulation?" The Martial King said lightly, "Yes." Han Fei couldn't help but be silent. If this was said by someone else, he would definitely not believe it. But since it was said by the Martial King, there was no reason not to believe it. The Martial King added, "Also, the mermaid royal family has already had a failed union, which was the failed union between Princess Mingzhu's mother and the one behind the God's Bane Heaven. This time, Princess Mingzhu's union with you almost pushed her to the position of a traitor. Even if she wants to go back, she may not be able to now. After all, Chen Huangdian is not the only one who has the final say in the mermaid royal family." Han Fei couldn't help but ponder. According to this, wouldn't it be impossible for Xia Xiaochan to pass the tribulation? Wait, Han Fei suddenly said, "What does Chen Huangdian mean by this?" The Martial King said, "I don't know what it means. You need to ask him yourself." If you make this the second thing you ask the Martial Emperor City to do, it is almost the same as asking the Martial Emperor City to slaughter the mermaid royal family, so this is absolutely impossible. Han Fei sighed slightly. "Thank you for telling me, Senior." Han Fei didn't expect this matter to be so complicated. Half a day later, in the non-route zone, Han Fei sat cross-legged on the Avenger. Luo Xiaobai, Xia Shaochan, Zhang Xuanyu, and Lu Renkuang were all called out by Han Fei. Lu Renkuang said with a smile, "Is this a special treatment? Why don't you call senior brother Da Shuai and the others out too?" Zhang Xuanyu seemed to find something wrong, not to mention Luo Xiaobai. Now that Han Fei called them out alone, they couldn't be fine. Xia Shaochan couldn't help but ask, "Have you been to the martial emperor's city?" Han Fei nodded slightly. Xia Shaochan immediately frowned. Can't I?" Luo Xiaobai glanced at Xia Shaochan and then looked at Han Fei. "What's the matter?" Even Lu Renkuang found something wrong. He stopped barbecuing and looked at Han Fei. Han Fei said, "The martial king doesn't agree to protect her during the tribulation. Girl, do you know the relationship between you and your mother?" Xia Xiaochan's face couldn't help but darken when she heard this. Originally, she wanted to use Han Fei's opportunity to go to the martial emperor city because her tribulation would be accompanied by the flapping of the wings of the heavenly cicada. At that time, not only the royal family of the mermaids would know, but so would the people of the gods' investiture heaven. There would definitely be many people who wanted to sabotage the heavenly tribulation. It probably wouldn't work if she didn't avoid it. But now, the martial king flatly refused, which was a big problem. Last time, when Han Fei wanted to return to the Yin-Yang heaven, so many experts were attracted, and the martial emperor's city could handle it. This time, it was just her tribulation, but the martial emperor's city couldn't handle it. It was obvious that this matter was more serious than she thought. Tribulation? Luo Xiaobai was surprised. "Shaochan, are you going to have a tribulation?" Zhang Xuanyu's face grew solemn. "So soon?" Lu Renkuang asked, "Why doesn't the martial emperor's city protect you?" Xia Shaochan said, "I just have a feeling that the reason why Chen Huangdian wants me to stay is because of my mother. But she is in a deep sleep, and I don't know when she will wake up. If I can wake her up, Chen Huangdian should tell me. But he never told me anything before." Han Fei said, "This time, I called you out because I have an immature and bold idea. I was thinking, should we discuss it?" Lu Renkuang immediately said, "Even you think it's immature. I'm afraid it's dangerous, isn't it? Otherwise, you would have done it a long time ago." Everybody nodded. After so many years, who didn't know each other? If he could solve it himself, he would have done it a long time ago. Why would he bring it up for discussion? Luo Xiaobai said, "Tell me about it first." Han Fei hesitated for a moment and said, "Uncle Xian told me about the situation in the chaotic Azure Sea, and Xiaobai, you've analyzed it too. I also know that our peak combat power is still too weak. Even if we manage to gather a few heaven-opening state experts, it will directly lead to civil strife in the human race, which will give others an opportunity to take advantage of. So, I'm wondering if the royal family of the mermaids can cooperate with us." When Han Fei said the last sentence, Xia Shaochan looked at Han Fei in shock. Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renkuang looked at each other and widened their eyes. Only Luo Xiaobai was slightly stunned, and then she calmed herself down and said, "If we can cooperate, tell me your reason first." Han Fei looked at Xia Shaochan. "Girl, how many heaven-opening state experts are there in the royal family of the mermaids?" Xia Shaochan thought for a moment. "As far as I know, there is only one person on the surface. If Chen Huangdian is really a heaven-opening state expert as I guessed, then there are two known people." Han Fei pondered for a moment and said, "There are two known people. Even if there are no hidden heaven-opening state experts, two heaven-opening state experts are already an extremely terrifying force. Our joint opponent, the Sword God of the Sword God Palace, is also a heaven-opening state expert. In this way, if we can cooperate with the royal family of the mermaids, we can at least protect the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven, let the girl go through the tribulation, and fight against the Grand Pure Wuji." Xia Shaochan was surprised. "Why do you have this idea?" Luo Xiaobai thought for a moment and said, "On the premise that the royal family of the mermaids agrees. Can you persuade the allies that have already been united?" Han Fei shook his head. "I don't know." Luo Xiaobai asked, "Why do you think the royal family of the mermaids will cooperate with us? We don't have any heaven-opening state experts. After all, the Sword God is an expert from the Sword God Palace. Although we are allies, will he support us? Zhang Xuanyu said, if you do this, will you be despised by the human race? Lu Renkuang nodded quickly. Why don't we think about it a little more? Didn't you say you were going to wait for the opening of that palace? What if our luck turns for the better? Han Fei had this idea because he was thinking about how to help Xia Xiaochan successfully pass the tribulation. Even King Wu had refused his request, so it would not be easy for Xia Xiaochan to pass the tribulation. Did Xia Xiaochan have to return to the royal family of the mermaids? Just as King Wu said, Xia Xiaochan had been taken away by him for so long. Even if she returned to the royal family of the mermaids, she might not be treated well. Instead of that, why not temporarily cooperate with the royal family of the mermaids? Except for the fact that he couldn't beat Chen Huangdian, everything seemed to be in his favor. The only problem was, why would the royal family of the mermaids cooperate with him? He had too few trump cards on his side. The only thing he could use was the navigational power of the multitude navigator. Han Fei said, no, if this method works, let's use it. I have to find a way to talk to Chen Huangdian. Xia Xiaochan was lost for words. Are you crazy? Won't you fight each other the moment you meet? Xia Xiaochan thought to herself, you already know that Chen Huangdian is in the heaven-opening state, but you still want to talk to him? Do you want to be killed by him again? Luo Xiaobai asked, have you thought it through? If we really cooperate, you will lose your reputation in the chaotic ocean, and you may even be regarded as a traitor. Han Fei chuckled. Whether or not I betray the clan will be decided in the end. But this is an opportunity. I have to try it. Otherwise, even if all the Avengers become half-kings, so what? Even if half of you enter the palace and become kings, so what? Our peak combat power is still not enough to compete with the Grand Pure Wuji. Lu Renkuang asked, do we have to compete with them? Han Fei narrowed his eyes and said, we are real enemies. I have a way to leave the chaotic ocean, and the Grand Pure Wuji will try to get it. Plus, the Grand Pure Wuji attacked the Yin-Yang water wood with the help of the immortal palaces, so we will really fight to the death. Zhang Xuanyu asked, since we can cooperate with the mermaid royal family, is there a chance to cooperate with the Grand Pure Wuji? Han Fei shook his head. We are sworn enemies. Even if we cooperate, do you really think we can be of one mind? If it weren't for the fact that Xia Xiaochan was the princess of the mermaid royal family, he wouldn't have cooperated with the mermaid royal family. Because the two sides had no basis for cooperation, the mermaid royal family was more powerful, and he couldn't get close to them. However, because of Xia Xiaochan's identity, and because of the unknown relationship between Xia Xiaochan and her mother that he heard from King Wu, the basis for cooperation was laid. Luo Xiaobai said, since you've thought it through, just do it. Anyway, the Yin-Yang heaven is trapped in the cage, and everything is because of the Grand Pure Wuji. Tens of thousands of years of hatred can't be settled so easily. Xia Xiaochan said, even if I want to talk to him, I can't go to the mermaid royal family. Chen Huangdian is temperamental. Han Fei said, am I that stupid? In the Martial Emperor City, the top 10 pirate groups were all stationed year-round. In the mermaid pirates, Yu Fengxian was floating in the water, cultivating. Suddenly, someone said, Captain, not good. Humph. What's the fuss? Don't you know I'm cultivating? What's the matter? Tell me. The man hurriedly swallowed and said, Captain Han Fei and Her Royal Highness are here. Yu Fengxian was taken aback. Why did Han Fei and Her Royal Highness come to see her? Immediately, Yu Fengxian's figure flashed and appeared outside the cultivation field. As she scanned with her perception, she found that it was none other than Her Royal Highness outside. Outside, Xia Xiaochan said to Han Fei, I spent some time with Annie Fengxian, and we're not bad friends. Don't try to intimidate me later. Han Fei rolled his eyes and said, do I need to intimidate her? She's a king anyway. How can she be afraid of me? As they talked, a graceful figure wearing multiple layers of gauze appeared in front of them. Different from Xia Xiaochan's cute and fierce look, Yu Fengxian's posture and demeanor were very charming. Yu Fengxian slightly bowed to Xia Xiaochan. Greetings, Your Royal Highness. I didn't expect that your Royal Highness has become a demi-king after only a few decades. Congratulations. Xia Shaochan said, Auntie Fengxian, we're here to ask you to convey something. Yu Fengxian was slightly taken aback. Your Royal Highness, you don't have a very good reputation in the clan. Many Pioneer Sea Realm experts are quite dissatisfied with you. Even that one is very unhappy. Whatever you want me to convey, it better be of some value. Otherwise, I'm afraid no one will listen to it. Han Fei said, it's simple. Just ask Chen Huangyan to come and have a talk. Nothing else. Yu Fengxian glanced at Han Fei and couldn't help but smile. Han Fei, Master Chen Huangyan, do you think you can meet him just because you say so? Han Fei chuckled. Trust me. This meeting is more important than you think, and it will even affect the entire royal family of mermaids. Yu Fengxian chuckled. Just because you say it will affect the entire royal family of mermaids? Why don't you convince me first so that I can think it over first? However, Han Fei slightly shook his head. You're not qualified. For a moment, Han Fei and Yu Fengxian clashed with each other's auras, and everybody around felt the pressure. Even Xia Shaochan felt that her shoulders were heavy. When Xia Shaochan raised her head, she saw that Han Fei and Yu Fengxian were staring at each other, as if they were going to pierce the void. After a minute or so, Yu Fengxian snorted and looked at Xia Shaochan. For the sake of your Royal Highness, I can convey the message. Just wait. 7 days passed. In a courtyard in the martial Emperor City, Han Fei and Xia Shaochan were making dumplings. All of a sudden, a voice echoed leisurely, I heard that you have something to talk to me about? I hope my trip is worthwhile. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan both raised their heads, only to see that Chen Huangyan was already standing on the roof. Han Fei wasn't bothered at all and kept making dumplings. He said lazily, I thought that you, Chen Huangyan, would be very cold. It seems that you've come after all. Chen Huangyan didn't respond to Han Fei but looked at Xia Shaochan. It seems that your Royal Highness is about to undergo a tribulation, isn't it? That's somewhat out of my expectation. But it's not too surprising. Is your Royal Highness going back to the mermaid's royal family? Xia Shaochan was gloomy and didn't say anything, but Han Fei chuckled. Girl, you can go back but not now and not in this way. Chen Huangyan smiled wickedly. I thought you were begging me. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Begging you? I'll beat you up sooner or later. Begging you? Chen Huangyan slightly shrugged. If you're not begging me to bring your Royal Highness back, why did you come to me? Pudong, Han Fei waved his hand, and a pile of dumplings fell into the pot. Then Han Fei extended his hand, and a nautical globe with 5 rings that were spinning slightly appeared in his hand. He said, Do you recognize this thing? Chen Huangyan looked at the nautical globe. He had guesses, but he wasn't sure. He said indifferently, Continue. Han Fei said, If my guess is correct, you know why the yin-yang heaven entered the savage abyss. Since he had some understanding, then he might know what I was holding in my hand. I'm not afraid to tell you that this is the way to leave the chaotic ocean. If the Grand Pure Wuji, the mermaid's royal family, the 100 demons, and the undersea humans know that I have this treasure, they will certainly try their best to rob me. Chen Huangdian chuckled. Do you think I'll believe you? Han Fei suggested, How about we make a bet? Chen Huangdian nodded. Go ahead. Han Fei said, The 36 divine palaces of the human race, the 13 heavens inside and outside the chaotic ocean, and you know where the yin-yang, water, and wood are. There are 8 divine palaces left, namely Thoughtless, Silver Moon, Beast King, Lihan, Feather, 10-Color, White Cloud, and Ash. If I can find them, do you think it's possible with this thing in my hand? Chen Huangdian asked, What does it have to do with the mermaid's royal family? Han Fei said, Stop talking in riddles. Everybody wants this thing, and the mermaid's royal family is no exception. Chen Huangdian chuckled. If you trade this thing for it, I can let the princess pass the tribulation safely and send her back. The question is, are you willing to give it to me? Han Fei also smiled. Of course not. That's why I'm here to negotiate with you. Chen Huangdian grinned. Tell me about it. What if I'm tempted? Han Fei said, The mermaid's royal family will ally with the yin-yang heaven to resist the grand pure Wuji, and I can take you out of the chaotic ocean. After that, we'll go our separate ways. Of course, you'll have to take care of the girl's tribulation. Chen Huangdian looked at Han Fei as if he were an idiot. The yin-yang heaven can't stop the grand pure Wuji, so you asked the mermaid's royal family to stop it. That's a good plan, just for an empty promise and a nautical instrument that can't be proved to be useful? Han Fei sneered. Do you think the mermaid's royal family has anything to do with me if I become an emperor? Do you think that if the lass wasn't a member of the merfolk royal family, I wouldn't have attacked the merfolk royal family after I took control of the 36 mysterious heavens and wiped out all my enemies? If the girl wasn't born in the mermaid's royal family, do you think I couldn't find someone else? Han Fei poured a large bowl of cold water into the pot and said, I'm the one who asked you to come today. I don't expect you to agree. I can wait. Wait until I find the missing immortal palaces and wait for you to come find me. Chen Huangdian smiled in disdain. Even if you find all the lost palaces, what can you do? Can you even defeat an emperor? Han Fei chuckled. Chen Huangdian, is that all you've got? Han Fei's eyes turned cold. I can sacrifice the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven. After I become an emperor, I'll take revenge on them one by one. But if you give up this opportunity, you'll lose the chance to leave the chaotic ocean forever. Also, you and I will be mortal enemies. Chapter 1926. Chen Huangdian didn't take Han Fei's threat seriously. He said unhurriedly, Your Highness, do you know why I'm trying my best to raise you? To make you a princess at the cost of offending the kings? Xia Xiaochan was at a loss. She knew that Chen Huangdian had a purpose, but she didn't know what it was. However, in terms of training, she indeed had everything she wanted when she was a princess. She had abundant resources and perfect trials, which were resources that normal people couldn't get. Chen Huangdian smiled. Your mother is the only pure-blooded royal bloodline of the mermaid royal family. The rest of them are just mixed bloodlines. When the Age of Doom came, human beings, sea demons, and the mermaid royal family all had expeditions to the east. Those people bypassed the imperial palace and went to the outside world. The outside world wasn't any better than the chaos of the races in the vast ocean. The people there are just as vicious. Your mother fell in love with a human man just like you did. At that time, the concept of race wasn't so strong, and the mermaids didn't object to marrying other creatures. That man used the excuse of marrying your mother and giving the merman clan a place to live as an excuse to deceive your mother. Eventually, he pierced her heart, extracted her blood, and devoured her bloodline in order to become the supreme emperor. Then, Chen Huangdian looked at Han Fei. Are you sure that he's a good man? Xia Xiaochan was shocked by the simple description. It sounded simple, but there was a lot of grudges and heartache in it. Xia Xiaochan was surprised. Then why was my mother able to return to the mermaid royal family? Chen Huangdian chuckled. As I said, your mother is the only pure-blooded royal bloodline of the mermaid royal family. Maybe you don't know what pure-blooded is. Only those who came from the divine orthodoxy can bestow a pure bloodline to their race. Therefore, your mother is the son of a god. This time, not only was Xia Xiaochan shocked, but even Han Fei was dumbfounded. Another divine prince? Han Fei had seen how powerful the sons of gods were. The divine prince, for example, hadn't died completely since the end of the era, the bloodline divine tree, and now. Like the divine prince said, he was a god after all. Although the son of a god was not strong enough, he could still be called a god. Therefore, the reason why Xia Xiaochan's mother was still alive probably had something to do with her identity as a divine prince. As he expected, Chen Huangdian said, the son of a god is a god. She guarded the only drop of blood in her heart. She had used a divine art and brought only a few people with her to escape from the outside world and return to this place. Originally, this drop of heart blood could have helped her to be reborn. However, Chen Huangdian looked at Xia Xiaochan. However, she discovered that she had a child. To ensure that the princess was born naturally, the drop of heart blood was absorbed by the princess, and she has been sleeping ever since. Heth. As he spoke, Chun Huangdian looked at Han Fei with a smile. Han Fei, do you really think I want to go to the outside world? I want blood. Your Highness has inherited the pure royal bloodline, so I must awaken your mother with the royal bloodline. You dare to make a deal with me without even knowing my basic demands? Xia Xiaochan's face turned pale. No wonder Chun Huangdian had never been nice to her, and no wonder Chun Huangdian could improve her with so many resources. As it turned out, that was the reason for everything. Han Fei, on the other hand, thought of why Chun Huangdian would tell Xia Xiaochan about it. Immediately, Han Fei's expression changed greatly. You deceived King Wu. You deliberately asked King Wu to reject me and lure me to you, so that you could tell the girl about it and trigger an inner demon crisis in her. Chun Huangdian smiled casually. You're not stupid. From this moment on, if your Highness wants to become a king, you must return to the royal family of mermaids. Otherwise, you won't be able to become a king. Han Fei couldn't have looked more gloomy. He hated such scheming guys the most. This guy had accomplished his purpose for decades with just one sentence. Chun Huangdian looked at Han Fei and said, I didn't tell Her Highness before because I feared that it would affect her training. But then, you showed up and took her away. Fortunately, it didn't deviate from my plan. So, how are you going to convince me now? Right when Han Fei was thinking about how to answer him, Xia Xiaochan suddenly said, What if I return the blood to my mother? Chun Huangdian said unhurriedly, Your bloodline will no longer be a pure royal bloodline, but you won't die. You'll lose the potential and knowledge of the Son of God, but at least you'll still have the bloodline of the royal family of mermaids and the infamily. You'll still be alive, won't you? Xia Xiaochan's expression changed. After a long silence, she suddenly raised her head. When the yin-yang heaven is born, ally with us and resist the grand pure Wuji. After that, I'll return to the royal family of mermaids with you and return the blood. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Xia Xiaochan. The bloodline of a god was no joke. Even his bloodline was far less promising than Xia Xiaochan's. Han Fei even regretted coming up with such a lousy idea. Why was he in such a hurry to find Chun Huangdian? Chun Huangdian chuckled. Although your Highness is a mermaid, why should I trust you? Xia Xiaochan said, I swear to the Tao. Chun Huangdian said unhurriedly, Let me hear it. Han Fei frowned. Xia Xiaochan, however, looked at Han Fei and said, If that's the case, I'll definitely return the blood. Xia Xiaochan cut her palm with her dagger and said, Xia Xiaochan, swear to the Tao. If the royal family of mermaids can protect the yin-yang heaven and the water-wood heaven, I'll return the divine blood to the royal family of mermaids. If I break my oath, I'll never be able to establish a sea again, and my divine blood will return to its origin. Okay. Chun Huangdian nodded and looked at them proudly. It's not enough. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Chun Huangdian, don't push your luck. Chun Huangdian said, It seems that we have a foundation for our cooperation. However, the mermaids have suffered such a great loss in the outside world. How can we let it go? So, we have to go to the outside world. We have to use your navigator too. So, you have to swear that you won't fight the royal family of mermaids if you rule the 36 divine palaces one day. Secondly, you have to bring the merfolk race away from the chaotic azure sea. Oh, right, I'm not sure what Tao you're walking, so don't swear on the great Tao. Just swear on the heavenly Tao. If you go against it, your fate will collapse. Han Fei was lost for words. Is that even possible? Han Fei was confused. Chun Huangdian laughed. Luck belongs to the Tao of heaven. I don't have to worry about you swearing a crooked oath. Clones won't work either. Now, let's see what you choose. Han Fei said gloomily, Chun Huangdian, you're really something. You're quite good at calculating. But you should know that the royal family of mermaids must protect the yin-yang heaven and the water-wood heaven after I swear the oath. Chun Huangdian said, I can protect the yin-yang heaven and the water-wood heaven, but the royal family of mermaids won't help either of you, nor will we help you win the internal conflict. I have nothing to do with the royal family of mermaids who wins or loses. Han Fei said, Deal? Han Fei was also a bachelor. He couldn't blame anybody else for being tricked. He could only say that the guy was as cunning as old Han. The guy had been waiting for him to jump into the trap. Who could have expected that? Chen Huangdian laughed aloud. If that's the case, you can do whatever you want, Your Highness. Remember to fulfill your promise in the future. However, when Chen Huangdian was about to turn around and leave, his expression slightly changed, as he saw someone appear at the gate of the courtyard. Narrowing his eyes, Chen Huangdian asked, King Wu. King Wu said casually, Chen Huangdian, you have to pay the price for lying to me. You've made the martial emperor city lose its credibility for the first time. Although you've reached an agreement, you still have to pay the compensation. Chen Huangdian's voice was indifferent. Master Martial King, is what I told you the truth? King Wu said indifferently, you made the martial emperor city break its promise. That's a lie. Tell me what compensation? Chen Huangdian's eyes flickered. 100 million ultra-quality spiritual stones, 100,000 spiritual fruits, and a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. King Wu looked at Chen Huangdian coldly. I'm not joking with you. Han Fei was secretly delighted. It was true that strength mattered most in this world. Chen Huangdian's face turned gloomy when King Wu said that he was not joking with him. Chen Huangdian had to be solemn. After a brief silence, he said, 1 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, 1 million spiritual fruits, 10 mermaid pearls, and 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures. King Wu slightly nodded and pointed at Han Fei. Give them to him. Chen Huangdian, Han Fei. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Is this the so-called blessing and misfortune come hand in hand? He had just been tricked by Chen Huangdian, and he was rewarded with so many resources? Chen Huangdian said, 3 days? King Wu said, today. You can borrow from the martial emperor city if you don't have enough. Han Fei was instantly in high spirits. Chen Huangdian deserved it. Chen Huangdian was silent for a moment and looked at Han Fei indifferently. But a moment later, Han Fei had complicated feelings when he held a bunch of sun moon shells. He bowed at King Wu. Thank you, King Wu. King Wu slightly shook his head. There's no need to thank me. The martial emperor city has always been trustworthy. Chen Huangdian deserves to be punished for deceiving us. As soon as he finished speaking, King Wu's figure flashed and vanished. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1927. However, when he thought about how he had expanded his origin sea to a radius of 30,000 miles, he realized that he was in dire need of resources. By the time he opened up a few more spirit orchards, created a few earth veins and spirit veins, and created a spirit lake to connect the origin sea, he would probably have to use up half of it. If that was the case, then the strong really did eat resources. This was especially true for sea expansion experts. Their demand for resources was even more terrifying. Only the heavens knew where they got so many resources for sea-opening realm experts to cultivate. Han Fei thought about it and handed 5 or 6 sun moon shells to Xia Shaochan. These are for your tribulation. Xia Shaochan was speechless. Are you stupid? We've already agreed to return to the Merfolk royal clan to undergo the tribulation, so of course we'll have the Merfolk clan's resources. Are we supposed to use our own? Han Fei thought of something. That makes sense. Then I'll trick Chen Huangdian. Hearing this, Han Fei realized that it made sense. He reached out and grabbed, and the hexagon starfish was pulled out. At this moment, there were still 6 bubbles on the 6 tentacles of the hexagon starfish, and it was still sleeping. Smith. Bang, bang, bang. The circle of bubbles was broken, and the hexagon starfish's big eyes suddenly widened. Who is it? What's wrong? What's up? When the hexagon starfish saw Han Fei's black face, he couldn't help but exclaim, I was too absorbed in my cultivation and accidentally fell asleep. Look at how my cultivation has soared from exalted realm pinnacle. Han Fei's lips shivered. Master hexagon starfish, be more convincing next time. It's fine if you stole my spirit stone mountain, but I didn't take it to heart if you stole it secretly. You stuffed a sun moon shell into it at one go, so what? That's my origin sea, how could I not know? Give it to me. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes quickly. Why is there a sun-moon shell in my sect? Who put it in there? How strange. Seeing the hexagon starfish take out the sun-moon shell reluctantly, Han Fei thought for a moment, and with a thought, everyone on the Avenger appeared in the yard. Luo Xiaobai and Zhang Xuanyu surrounded him immediately. Luo Xiaobai asked, "Did you do that?" Zhang Xuanyu, "What's going on? Is that Chen Huangyin here?" Lu Renkuang asked, "Where are we?" Han Fei sighed slightly and said, "I'll tell you about it later. I asked you to come out this time because you've exhausted your resources recently, so I'm giving you some wages." Lu Renkuang and Zhang Xuanyu had long been used to these non-mainstream terms, and their eyes lit up. As soon as the others came out, they also paid attention to Han Fei. Nin, or even leaned over. "Brother, what's the salary?" Han Fei thought for a moment. The so-called salary is the bonus you get from working on the Avenger. In the past few years, your strength has grown too quickly, and the consumption of resources has also been rapid. Many of you are about to run out of resources. It was not a good idea to continue like this. There's no other way. How can this king watch you waste your energy on mere resources? Give everyone 2 million supreme-grade spirit stones to replenish their resources. Hiss, 2 million supreme spirit stones? How rich? Yi Xian glanced at him. "Senior brother, do you have too much money to spend?" Chu Jinan asked, "Senior brother, are you sure we don't want to leave some for the principal?" The Insect King asked, "How many resources do we have to give out?" Wang Dashui nodded. "Junior brother, you know me. As for Xue Ning and Su Kan, they were all confused. Is the welfare of the Avengers so good? All the resources plundered belong to the crew. Not to mention, they cultivate every day with the resources they get from non-shipping routes. They can even be taken to a place like the 9 Palace Heaven for trials. Why do they have to pay?" Han Fei said, line up. 2 million per person is just a small amount of money. In this Martial Emperor city, it's not even enough to take a stroll in a super resource store." Luo Xiaobai was surprised. "Are we in the Martial Emperor city?" Hiss, although they often heard the name Martial Emperor city, it was the first time that they had actually landed in the Martial Emperor city. In an instant, they were about to extend their perception outward. However, Han Fei's perception shook and shattered all their perceptions. Han Fei said grumpily, "Don't spread your perception out for no reason. The strong masters here can kill you with a thought. Don't make trouble for me." Yi Xian asked, "Senior brother, I heard that the super resource store in the Martial Emperor city has all kinds of good things. Can we go and have a look?" Nin added, "Brother, I want to go too." Since Yin chose to stay in the 9 Palace Heaven, Nian had been hanging out with Yi Xian and Gu Qi, who were the youngest. She was encouraged by Yi Xian and liked them now. Han Fei snorted. "After all, I've been cultivating for several days. I'll rest today and tomorrow. I'll leave the Martial Emperor city early the day after tomorrow." "Yay, ha!" Someone immediately found Xue Ning and Su Kan and said, "Brother Xue, you've been to the Martial Emperor city before. You have to show us around." "Brother Su, can you take me to my bookstore later?" But at this moment, a young man suddenly appeared in the courtyard. The young man cupped his hands at Han Fei and said, "Master Han Fei, the people on the Avenger haven't registered yet. I need to register them." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay, that saves me the trouble. Go register and get your own identity cards. Next time you come alone, you'll be recognized." After a moment, Han Fei gave each of them 2 million ultra-quality spiritual stones, which made the hexagon starfish's eyes turn green. Looking at the greedy hexagon starfish, Han Fei shook his head slightly. "In the future, you'll train with the Avenger. I'm afraid you've been spoiled by the time acceleration." The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled. "Don't. How slow is it to cultivate in the outside world? I want to swim in the spiritual lake with little black and little white." With a thought from Han Fei, dozens of arrays merged and finally fell on the hexagon starfish, directly sealing his mouth. He said, "Don't nag. You've been used to a good life. I'm afraid you've been spoiled." At this moment, except for Luo Xiaobai and the others had followed Xuening and Su Can to the Chu sect. They really needed someone to explain the prosperity of the martial emperor city. Luo Xiaobai and the others looked at Han Fei, and Han Fei briefly told them the result of the matter. Lu Renkuang exclaimed, "This is like asking a turtle in its shell." Zhang Xuanyu said, "So, now that both of you have made a heavenly Tao oath, are we really going to ally with the royal family of the mermaids? You haven't discussed this with other allies yet, have you?" Han Fei said, "Don't worry about others. This is a deal between the Yin-Yang Heaven and the royal family of the mermaids, and it has nothing to do with other people. Well, it can't be helped. If the girl wants to go through the tribulation, she can't avoid the royal family of the mermaids. This is actually not a loss." Luo Xiaobai said, "The question is, can Xiaochan go to the royal family of the mermaids alone? Can Chen Huangdian represent the entire royal family of the mermaids? Will Xiaochan be in danger?" Han Fei frowned. "I don't think so. The girl can only extract that wisp of divine blood when she becomes a king." Xia Xiaochan said, "Now that I know this, I must return this drop of blood. But at least I haven't gone yet. I won't go to the royal family of the mermaids until the Yin-Yang Heaven is born. If I die?" Xia Xiaochan said and looked at Han Fei. Han Fei sneered. "If you die, there will be no royal family of the mermaids in this world." The stronger one was, the easier one could understand how simple the destruction of a race was. The strong were the rules and they had their reasons. If the strong wanted you to live and die, you would live and die. Since this principle was followed in this world, Han Fei was no exception. But on this day, the information of the Avengers pirate crew's personal allocation was immediately seen by countless people. When they saw that this fleet of more than 50 people had at most 15 or 16 half-king realm powerhouses, and the weakest one had reached the intermediate venerable realm, they couldn't help but be surprised. This force could only be described as very strong. Of course, what made the intelligence personnel speechless on this day was that the crew of the Avengers were so fucking rich. These people wandered in the super resource store of the Martial Emperor City, spending 1 million ultra-quality spiritual stones on average. In just one day, it was said that this group of people had spent more than 60 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Of course, this couldn't be compared with the consumption of Han Fei and the others. But this was by no means a small number. The main reason was that this group of people was dazzled. Along the way, they felt that even the garbage in the super resource store was a treasure. Although they had made a variety of resource allocation plans, they still spent a lot. Among them, Nian, and Yi Xian had spent the most. They didn't even have a stone left. They spent all the 2 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Mainly, it was Su Daiji who said this. She said, "Senior brother said that we can go through the back door." Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1928. To avoid being ambushed, Han Fei left Martial Emperor City with everyone in the Origin Sea. Now, Han Fei's Origin Sea seemed to have become a moving world like the sea quelling painting, which made the sea quelling painting basically useless. Even though Han Fei knew every immortal palace had a sea quelling painting, he did not go out of his way to collect them. He wondered, if I collect them one by one, how am I supposed to get these people to ally with me? I might as well wait until I'm powerful enough to deter the entire 36 profound heavens, and then I'll consider collecting all the sea quelling paintings and see if there are any secrets in them. A day later, Spider King City in the myriad poison heaven. When Han Fei came again this time, he didn't need to be as secretive as last time. Han Fei did not hide, so as soon as he arrived in the myriad poison heaven, he heard the myriad poison ancestor's voice. "I thought you ran away with the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron. I really didn't expect that. It's only been a few decades, and you've actually become a sea expansion king." On a certain mountain peak in the great desolate swamp, Han Fei and the myriad poison ancestor, Huang Jie, stood side by side. Huang Jie said, "Where's the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron? Let me take a look." Han Fei waved his hand casually, and a pill cauldron with purple mist hovered in the air. Huang Jie's eyes were filled with infatuation. He clicked his tongue and said, "That's right, it's indeed the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron, a holy artifact of the world, a priceless treasure." "Ha, is the old lady exploding with anger? It's so refreshing." Han Fei smiled. "Elder Huang, I've come to ask for 2 things this time." Huang Jie thought, since he can find the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron, let alone 2 things, even if I want 10 things, I can do them all. Han Fei said, "First, lend me the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron for 10 years. Body refining? You're using a pill cauldron to refine your body?" Han Fei smiled. "I've discovered that in this pill cauldron, body refining seems to be more effective." Huang Jie narrowed his eyes. "I don't mind if you want to refine yourself as a pill. However, the day you return the pill cauldron will be the day you truly ally with the myriad poison heaven." Han Fei slightly nodded. Of course. Now that Han Fei had united with the royal family of mermaids, he was no longer in a hurry to find other allies. All these years, in order to nurture these people on the Avenger, he had wasted a lot of his time. Huang Jie was not in a hurry. Although Han Fei was now powerful, Huang Jie was sure that Han Fei still needed allies. It could be seen from the battle when Han Fei returned to the Savage Abyss. His enemy was not someone that Han Fei could fight alone. Having lost the supreme violet smoke furnace for tens of thousands of years, Huang Jie naturally did not mind losing it for another 10 years. Huang Jie said, "You have 2 requests. What's the other one?" Han Fei smiled. "Of course, the 9 poison treasure silkworm." Han Fei was implying that he wanted Huang Jie to provide him with a way to resist the soul poison. When he was with Huang Jie, since he knew about the 9 poisons treasure silkworm, he certainly wouldn't let it go. Although he rarely encountered poison cultivators and famous poisons in all his experiences, this was not a reason for him to let his guard down. Han Fei thought it was very necessary to refine a poison-resistant body at every level. In this chaotic sea, there were countless poisonous creatures. As long as he stood on the sea and scanned with his perception, there would be a lot of them. Although he could crush them now, it did not mean that he could crush any poisonous creature in the future. Therefore, it was very important to nip them in the bud. In particular, the soul poison was even more important. Huang Jie said, "Although the 9 poisons treasure silkworm is rare, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. On the day when the supreme violet smoke furnace is returned, the 9 poisons treasure silkworm will be presented to you. At the same time, I will explain the way to resist poison in the soul." Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. "In that case, thank you, Senior." Huang Jie couldn't help but say, "You haven't achieved either of these 2 requests. Are you sure it's okay?" Han Fei thought for a moment. "There is one more thing that I need to ask." Huang Jie knew it wouldn't be so simple. He heard him say, "Just say it." Han Fei smiled. "Elder Huang, do you have a way to develop a great poison that can deal with heaven-opening state experts?" Huang Jie didn't expect that Han Fei would target the heaven-opening state. He thought to himself, there are so many sea-opening realm experts. You haven't even dealt with them yet, and you're already thinking about the heaven-opening state? However, in Han Fei's eyes, Huang Jie hesitated, which made his eyes light up. Is there a chance? Han Fei didn't have much hope at first, but seeing Han Fei's reaction, he couldn't help but feel excited. Huang Jie said leisurely, "The heaven-opening state has always been the direction of my research. Even if there is such a strange poison, I won't give it to you easily. If I don't die, the 10,000 poison heaven will be finished. Do you understand what I mean?" Of course, Han Fei understood. The most poisonous poison in the world must come from the 10,000 poison heaven. If he really didn't die, the 10,000 poison heaven would be in great trouble. However, Han Fei said, "Elder Huang, I'm afraid you haven't realized what kind of battle you are involved in. The Yin-Yang Heaven and the Grand Pure Wuji can only fight to the death. Now, you should know who's standing on the right side." Huang Jie nodded slightly. The 4 palaces, including the Immeasurable Sword God, the Ice Snow Heaven, and your Yin-Yang Heaven and Waterwood Heaven. Even if you include my 10,000 Poison Heaven, you are still far from it. Han Fei grinned. You can count 9 palace heaven. 9 palace heaven? Huang Jie couldn't help but look at Han Fei. 9 palace heaven had disappeared for tens of thousands of years. However, he had guessed Han Fei's identity. He couldn't help but wonder if Han Fei had found the ruins of 9 palace heaven. Huang Jie said, "How much strength can 9 palace heaven have left? It was almost destroyed back then." Han Fei said, "Apart from 9 palace heaven, I have other allies. It's not that I want to stir up internal strife in the human race. It's that the 36 mysterious heavens have collapsed for too long, and an imperial palace has trapped this place for 100,000 years. Even if I give you another 100,000 years, so what? Elder Huang, you are betting that I will break the boundaries of this place?" Seeing that Huang Jie was silent, Han Fei said, "Senior, it doesn't matter whether you believe what I said or not. The important thing is that if you really have a poison to deal with people in the heaven-opening realm, remember to prepare it. What if you want to use it? All right, that's all I have to say. I'll take my leave now." "Wait a minute." Old Huang Jie looked at Han Fei, but didn't mention the poison. Instead, he asked, "Did old Madame Chiu really refine a 9th-grade divine pill?" Han Fei sneered. Huang Jie asked, "A nest of 8th grade?" Han Fei said, "1 8th grade, and the rest were swept clean by Wang Yijin. I risked my life to snatch one." Not knowing if Huang Jie believed it or not, the old man turned his head to look at the great desolate swamp and said leisurely, "I knew it. With that old vicious woman's ability, she can only refine 8th grade pills by luck. How can she refine a 9th grade one?" While Huang Jie was talking, Han Fei had disappeared. Huang Jie didn't care but continued to stand on the top of the mountain for a long time. 1 year later, on a certain route, a big black boat was drifting alone on the sea, and on this boat, there was only one person sitting on the bow, fishing leisurely. If one could sweep over 100,000 kilometers, one would definitely find that there were as many as 67 battles taking place within a radius of 100,000 kilometers. There were often waves and ripples that could stir this big black boat. Swish, he saw a round dart-like object flash by. Xia Xiaochan threw out her hook, but it didn't catch that guy. The next moment, Xia Xiaochan shouted, "Big starfish, you are lazy again. If Han Fei finds out, you will suffer a lot." The hexagon starfish couldn't help but say, "Starfish has worked very hard. Starfish has fought 3 battles in a row today. Now, Starfish has learned to fight." Xia Xiaochan bared her teeth. "You call that fighting? Let's go. I will teach you personally." The hexagon starfish cried, "Hey, don't. Starfish is just joking. Don't." In Han Fei's origin sea, a purple pill furnace was emitting purple flames. In the furnace, Han Fei was sitting cross-legged, and his flesh and blood were flowing with the color of golden jade. Upon a closer look, this golden jade color had covered every corner of his body. The top of the furnace collapsed and flew away, and a golden light flashed out. Han Fei's eyes flickered with golden light, and his soul condensed into a big shadow in the void, as if it were a world. Suddenly, the old turtle's voice sounded. "You finally came out of seclusion? This time, you have cultivated for more than 31 years. It seems that your body and soul have made breakthroughs again?" Han Fei sighed. "I've finally mastered this technique. It's time to set off to find those immortal palaces with news." The 3rd chapter, a transitional chapter to prepare for the next plot. Soon, end of this chapter. Chapter 1929. 12 years passed. Hula. In a sea area that was raging and almost completely covered by violent hurricanes, a big black ship was rising and falling in the waves. On the deck, a man and a woman stood quietly and motionlessly. From time to time, there would be a figure flashing past in the violent hurricane. A wind demon twisted in the wind and was killed by a sword. Phew, phew, phew. 10,000 kilometers away, chains were dancing crazily in the sky, and a mantis shrimp more than 500 meters long killed 4 wind demons on its chains. They were swallowed by it. Who else could it be if not the 9-tailed mantis shrimp? 100,000 kilometers away, vines were wandering in the wind like waterfalls. At this moment, there was a half-king realm wind demon that was trapped by numerous vines that seemed like chains. At this moment, it was charging about in all directions while blades of wind covered the sky. However, as the vines constricted, the place was completely blocked by the demonic plants, and the half-king wind demon was eventually strangled in the vines. Yes, after more than 10 years, the Avenger had experienced so many legends on the vast sea. On its way to find the flying feather sky, it encountered a violent hurricane. And this violent hurricane was already the 5th one they had encountered in the past half a month. They seemed to have walked into an area enshrouded in a violent hurricane. Xia Xiaochan said, "The power of the violent hurricane is getting stronger and stronger." Swish, a streak of golden light flashed by, and Luo Xiaobai stood on it and flew 3,000 kilometers away. She returned to the Avenger in the blink of an eye. Chirp, Xiao Jin circled around the boat for a while and then flew out with a whoosh. He liked this kind of environment very much and could fly freely. Luo Xiaobai glanced at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. This violent hurricane is unusual. It's just the beginning, and a half-king wind demon has already appeared. Also, the number of half-king wind demons has obviously increased. Han Fei said, "It doesn't matter. I suspect that these are 2 violent hurricanes that have collided. Let's advance slowly and take the sea-shaking wind pearl first." Luo Xiaobai said, "I just had an illusion. Do you feel that this place looks like the Wind Sky Canyon?" Han Fei was intrigued, but he asked in confusion, "There are no wind sky wings here." Suddenly, Han Fei looked ahead, where the void vine burst out a distress signal. Swish, with a flash of golden light, Han Fei disappeared from the Avenger. The vine of the void was no longer the vine of the void that did not seek to improve. After so many years, it had reached the peak of the Venerable One for 5 to 6 years. Logically speaking, with the void vine's unique ability to travel through the void, it was almost impossible for even a half-monarch realm powerhouse to catch him. However, within the violent hurricane, there was a creature that actually used the power of the wind to cut through the void, sealing off the void vine's escape route. "Bold demon plant, you dare intrude into the raging wind domain. You must die." The bird spoke the human language and spewed out azure flames from its mouth. Its sharp claws tore through the air and went straight for the void vine. However, the void vine instinctively mobilized the void storm in an attempt to strangle the bird. However, the feathers on the giant bird flew out like blades, and thousands of feathers swept across, changing the wind and disrupting the void. Seeing that it was not good, the void vine immediately crushed the jade slip and shouted, "Captain, help! You have accomplices?" With a thought, the giant azure bird's perception swept through the surroundings, but it didn't find anyone. However, it didn't know that its perception range was just not large enough. Pretentious, die. When the void vine was about to be cut into pieces, a golden light quietly appeared. The green giant bird was greatly shocked, and the 1,000 feather blades were about to strangle it. The tiny figure casually waved his hand, causing the 1,000 feather blades to fly backward, causing the gust of wind to shatter. The void was back to normal. The void vine came out with a whoosh. One of its vines pointed at the green bird and said, "Captain, this bird is so unreasonable. It's definitely not a good bird." Han Fei glanced at it, and information popped up in his eyes. Named Storm Dragon Eagle. Introduction: an ancient exotic creature that lives in storm-prone places. It moves as fast as stars and can escape in the wind. It can freely control the power of the wind. Its feathers are like blades, scattered like wind blades, and gathered like divine wings. It cannot be underestimated. Level 89 Quality Ancient Exotic Species Realm Half-King contains chaotic energy greater than 298 wisps. Battle Skills: Wind-Piercing Void, 1,000 Feather Divine Blade Slash, Barrier-Breaking Demon Claws. Collectibles: Dragon Eagle Eyes, Dragon Eagle Claws, Storm Heart. Remarks: the Storm Dragon Eagle is violent and not easy to tame. Han Fei frowned. It turned out to be a half-king storm dragon eagle, which looked extraordinary. Han Fei's pressure fell, and the storm dragon eagle only felt a terrifying pressure on its body, which made its soul tremble. The giant bird's body suddenly dispersed, turning into a gust of wind as it attempted to escape. However, Han Fei smiled. Still, with a thought, 100 arrays appeared, and the wind suddenly stopped, just like how the storm dragon eagle blocked the void vines just now. The wind gathered and turned into a big bird, and the storm dragon eagle said in horror, "King?" The storm dragon eagle was appalled. After realizing Han Fei's strength, it quickly apologized. "I didn't know you were here. I didn't mean to offend you." "Okay." Han Fei didn't care about the life and death of a half-king, but the half-king seemed to be absent-minded, which made him a little curious. Han Fei immediately looked into the distance. Unfortunately, the wind of the violent hurricane could tear apart perception. Even Han Fei's perception couldn't be extended very far. But Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. He asked, "Are there other people of your kind in this hurricane?" The storm dragon eagle didn't want to answer, but Han Fei was a king. Even if it concealed its strength, Han Fei could still find out. So, the storm dragon eagle said, "Your Majesty, behind is the hunting ground of my clan and some itinerant human beings. Please have mercy. I'll dismiss them as soon as possible." "There are humans?" Han Fei couldn't help narrowing his eyes. It seems that humans who can survive in this wind domain have been found. The storm dragon eagle's heart trembled. What did Han Fei mean? Han Fei was not in a hurry. He looked at the void vine and said, "Go inform everyone on the Avenger to approach the Avenger. If you encounter a humanoid expert with wings, don't attack blindly." Hearing this, the void vine immediately realized that they had found the flying feather sky. Immediately, the void vine was overjoyed. "Yes, Captain." The void vine disappeared in a flash, and Han Fei frowned slightly. According to the nautical Vientiane, the flying feather sky and the shadowless sky were in the same direction. Now that they had found the flying feather sky, what about the shadowless sky? Could it be that the shadowless sky had been destroyed, or the two great immortal palaces had joined hands? Or had they not arrived at the shadowless sky yet? However, no matter what, it was good to find the flying feather sky. In the past 12 years, the Avenger had been searching for people in addition to training. Now only the 10-colored sky, the flying feather sky, and the shadowless sky had not been found. The other celestial palaces had contact with them. And now Fei Yutian had found it. He had finally found another immortal palace before the opening of the Emperor Palace. Because Han Fei had planned to return to the core area of the chaotic Azure Sea in half a year at most. Who would have thought that they would meet at this moment? He could only see that within the raging hurricane. The void vines were everywhere. He shouted, "Captain's orders, return to the vicinity of the Avenger and await further orders." Swoosh, 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 the figures shouted one after another. "The void vines. Which direction is the ship?" The void vine became a guiding light. When everyone saw where the void vine pointed, they immediately returned to the ship. After a while, on the Avenger, a group of people returned with a swoosh. Xia Xiaochun wondered, "Why are you all back?" Zhang Xuanyu asked, "Didn't the void vine tell us to come back?" White Ferret, "Looks like everyone has been notified." Swish, Lu Renquang emerged from the void. "Smashed? I was chasing a half-king realm wind demon and was about to take him down. Why were you suddenly called back? What happened?" At this moment, a blue light flashed, and a beautiful girl seemed to appear out of thin air. The girl's eyes were innocent, her hair was braided, and she was stuffing jerky into her mouth. Xia Shetan asked, "Where are Daji and the others?" At this moment, Nian Er's strength was astonishing, and even Luo Xiaobai and the others couldn't see her clearly. And Nian Er seemed to have entered the half-king realm without any hindrance. Nian said, "I'm not with them. Oh, by the way, sister-in-law, I saw someone with wings." Someone with wings? Luo Xiaobai and Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but look at each other. Fei Yutian? But at this moment, the void vine appeared. Not good, Yi Xian and the others are surrounded by a group of birdmen. There are 3 half-kings among them. Luo Xiaobai's face changed slightly. "Let's go and have a look. Void vine, tell them not to hurt each other." Just hold them off for a while. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1930. Over the years, the Avenger had been traveling through the sea routes like they were traveling on flat ground. Their strength was several times stronger than when they left the savage abyss. Even Yi Xian, Su Daiji and the others had reached the peak of the mid-level Venerable Realm. Most of them were already at the peak of the Venerable Realm or Half-a-King Realm. Han Fei had already poured all of his resources into nurturing them. How could the resources they hunted be enough to nurture so many experts in a short period of 20 years? It could be said that every single person here was a seed, a genius with exceptional talent. Any one of them would be able to shake the world with their might. After 12 years, the number of people on the Avenger had dropped to 53. At this point, not a single one of them could be missing. At this moment, Yi Xian and the others were surrounded by 7 or 8 winged humanoids. There were also several large birds hovering in the wind. There were people standing on them. These people were quite unique. All of them were humanoids with wings, and their hair was white. As for the people standing on the birds, they looked no different from ordinary people. At this moment, someone shouted at Yi Xian and the others, "Who are you? Where did you come from? What was that demonic vine that escaped just now?" Xingyu said, "Everyone, you should be from the flying feather heavens, right? We came from the core region of the chaotic azure sea to search for the lost immortal palace." Compared to Yi Xian and the others, they needed someone with a calm temperament to speak at the crucial moment. Xingyu might be the weakest among them, but fortunately, he was quick-witted and adaptable. That was why he was the leader of the 5. The expressions of the flying feather heavens changed drastically. People from the core region of the chaotic azure sea? One had to know that in the ancient history books, there were many factions in the chaotic vast sea, and many immortal palaces avoided the war, struggling to survive. The ironclad rule of the flying feather heavens was that no one was allowed to leave the violent wind domain. Now, outsiders had actually come to find them. This made them curious. Many people did not have the intention to kill immediately. Instead, they were more curious. However, someone suddenly shouted from the crowd, "Take them down. The location of the violent wind domain must not be leaked by them." This person's words immediately reminded everyone, causing them to break out in cold sweat. That's right, back then, our ancestors had thought of a way to escape from the core area of the chaotic azure sea and found this raging wind domain. Now that there were outsiders here, the first thing they had to worry about wasn't curiosity, but that they couldn't let these people go. Xingyu's expression changed slightly, but he did not make a sound. He only said, "Don't do anything." However, there were experts from the soaring feather heaven who drew their bows and threatened, "Bring us to capture that demonic vine that escaped earlier. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." Xingyu suddenly raised his head and looked at the man. "Wu. Everyone?" Xingyu, 9, 8. In the face of the unknown, even if Xingyu and the others were weaker than these people, their calmness caused the expressions of these soaring feather heavens experts to change. What did this mean? A woman shouted, "What do you mean? Do you think that we won't dare to attack you?" Xingyu, 5, 4, whoosh. Seeing that Xingyu didn't reply, a feather sky expert shot out an arrow. When the arrow shot out, Taoist rhyme appeared and the image of a phoenix arrived in an instant. However, Su Daiji suddenly shouted. The hammer in her hand shone with golden light, and when she moved her arm, it was as if lightning had exploded. Ding, boom, the person who attacked was a high-level venerable. He originally just wanted to teach Xingyu a lesson. However, Su Daiji attacked and destroyed the power of the arrow with her hammer. She didn't even take half a step back, which made that person shocked and angry. Someone from the soaring feather heaven was surprised. That girl is so strong. No matter how weak Yifeng's arrow is, it should at least be able to injure her. But she didn't move at all? Are the people from the outside all so strong? The leader was a woman. Her aura descended, trying to suppress Xingyu and the others. Of course, when the aura really came down, the 5 people looked normal as if they didn't feel it at all. Xingyu, 3, 2. The face of the woman leading the soaring feather heaven turned cold. She directly attacked. She wanted to take Xingyu down before he finished shouting. The void hand froze the void. This was the real power of a demi-king. It didn't give them any chance at all. At this time, Guqi opened his armor box, and 7 sword shadows slashed in the air. The shape and appearance of this sword were very similar to Han Fei's Dao Convergent sword. Of course, it was inferior in terms of Taoist aura. However, Guqi's attack was full of fighting spirit. He cut open the void seal with his sword, and the sword shadows resisted the void hand. The expression of the woman from the soaring feather heaven changed slightly. Ultra-quality divine weapons. 7 in 1? The others were all shocked. A mere peak mid-level venerable actually blocked the attack of a demi-king? But when they heard this, they couldn't help but exclaim. Which mid-level venerable was so extravagant as to have 7 ultra-quality divine weapons? Blood flowed from the corner of Guqi's mouth. He shouted in a low voice, "I'll borrow your hand to break my barrier." Crack, there was a crisp sound. Although Guqi couldn't penetrate the big hand with his sword, he broke through under the pressure of the sword. This scene instantly caused the woman's expression to turn ugly. Did I act just to help you break through? Just as she was about to capture the 5 of them, she heard a whoosh. The void was torn open, and a large ship steadily moved forward in the raging winds. It appeared less than 10 miles away from the group. As Xing Yu's last words landed, he smiled and said, "Everyone, our people are here. Do all of you wish to kill them?" Swish, swish, swish. Who dares to touch the people of the Avenger? Bullying the few with numbers? Is this the style of the soaring feather heaven? How dare you bully my little junior sister? The people of the soaring feather heaven were all shocked. Someone said, "Qingxue, not good. They're all demi-kings." Someone exclaimed, "Hiss! Lady Qingxue, there are so many of them." On the back of the bird, someone was shocked. Did the outer domain discover where we are and attack? Someone was frightened. That ship doesn't look like a good one. Lady Qingxue, let's go. Zhang Xuanyu quietly appeared in front of the 5 people. Yi Xian immediately shouted, "Husband, you're finally here. We almost got into a fight." Zhang Xuanyu rolled his eyes at Yi Xian, but then he glanced at the strange people of the soaring feather heaven and said coldly, "Is it fun to bully a few mid-level supremacies? Why don't we have some fun?" Qingxue's expression was ugly. The other party was aggressive, and they all looked murderous. It was obvious that they were not good people. Moreover, there were demonic plants, ferocious beasts, humans, insects, and the unknown fellow from the sky race. What kind of clan did this strange group belong to? Qingxue suddenly shouted and sent a voice transmission, "Run! Go back and report to the elders of the race." However, as soon as Qingxue finished speaking, she suddenly realized that she could not move. Not only Qingxue, but all the experts of the soaring feather heaven were also unable to move. The ordinary storm dragon eagles could not even flap their wings at this moment. Around them, the violent wind seemed to have stopped. They could not fall, nor could they move. They were like fish waiting to be slaughtered. At this moment, opposite Qingxue, many people shouted, "Captain! Brother, Han Fei, don't tell me you just came." Of course, Han Fei hadn't just arrived. He had been watching for a while. He came, but he let go of the half-king realm storm dragon eagle. His intention was simple. He just wanted the dragon eagle to go back and inform the others. Otherwise, it would be too presumptuous for the Avenger to suddenly arrive. Qingxue turned her head with difficulty, only to see a young man next to her. She couldn't help but be shocked. A sea expansion realm expert? He was definitely a sea expansion realm expert. Han Fei said leisurely, "What are you doing? Can't you be more friendly?" Everyone was speechless. "You want us to be friendly, but are you friendly yourself?" Under the pressure of a sea expansion realm expert, they couldn't even move. As soon as Han Fei raised his hand, Qingxue and the others were suddenly relieved, but they dared not move at this moment. Qingxue's face changed greatly, and she hurriedly stepped back. She looked up at Han Fei and quickly lowered her head. Greetings, Master King. Han Fei put his hands behind his back and pretended to be a master. Well, let's wait here. Qing Xue and the other experts of the soaring feather heaven couldn't help but wonder who Han Fei was waiting for. Someone worthy of a king's weight must be a king of their clan, right? Qing Xue didn't dare to ask. Who could resist a sea expansion realm expert except for a king? At this moment she could only wait. Han Fei said, "Miss, are you of the same race?" Han Fei's eyes fell on the normal humans standing on the back of the storm dragon eagles. They had no wings and their hair was not white. They looked just like normal people. Qing Xue gritted her teeth and finally said, "Master, they are allies of the lawless heaven." No wonder. No wonder Han Fei pointed in the same direction when he was looking for the lawless heaven and the soaring feather heaven. Although he had guessed it before, seeing was believing. Han Fei nodded slightly. So, the two divine palaces of the soaring feather heaven and the lawless heaven are hiding here to recuperate? This time, Qing Xue didn't speak, but it was the truth. At this moment, suddenly, two auras penetrated the storm and descended. In the gale, there was a voice, spinning in the hurricane, and the voice seemed to come from all directions. Why are you disturbing the soaring feather heaven? Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1931. In the middle of the furious tornadoes, the two lords broke through the wind and arrived. One of them had pure white wings on his back, which were not the wings of the wind sky wings but the natural wings of the flying feather heaven. The other person was thin and looked like a normal human being. Just like Han Fei and the others, he looked like an orthodox human being. Naturally, Han Fei couldn't tell their strength, but he estimated that there were no heaven creation state experts in the flying feather heaven, so he didn't really care. Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. Junior Han Fei, the current master of the Yin-Yang heaven, is pleased to meet you, seniors. The Yin-Yang heaven? The king of the flying feather heaven couldn't help but look at the man next to him in surprise. The man was obviously the king of the shadowless heaven. He slightly frowned. If it were the Yin-Yang heaven, they would have been on friendly terms with the shadowless heaven. However, the master of the Yin-Yang heaven had changed, and so had the shadowless heaven. It was said that the heavenly desolation city had fallen into the territory of the Yin-Yang heaven, which had been badly beaten. It was truly unexpected that they met again. The man couldn't help but ask, "Fellow cultivator Han Fei, how did you find this place, and why are you here?" Han Fei couldn't help but look at Xia Shaochan. Xia Shaochan blinked and appeared next to Han Fei. They looked at each other and extended their hands at the same time. 2 drops of water appeared in their hands. The king of the shadowless heaven's face changed greatly. "Chaotic original water?" Han Fei said with a smile, "I'm here to find the flying feather heaven and the shadowless heaven, and to fulfill a wish, to rebuild the heavenly desolation city." Even Luo Xiaobai and the others didn't know that. Neither Han Fei nor Xia Shaochan had mentioned it, so even the people on the Avenger were dumbfounded when they heard it. Rebuild the heavenly desolation city? The two kings looked at each other in disbelief, especially the king of the shadowless heaven, who thought to himself, "Our main city has been gone for tens of thousands of years, and an outsider wants to rebuild it?" Who wouldn't be dumbfounded? Qing Xue and the other experts of the shadowless heaven looked at each other in bewilderment. They didn't expect that the man was the master of the Yin-Yang heaven. Han Fei asked, "Seniors, won't you introduce yourselves?" The person from the flying feather heaven cupped his hands slightly. "Since we are all at the sea expansion realm, there is no such thing as seniors or juniors. I am the current palace master of the soaring feather heavens, Xieyu. Greetings, Brother Han. I am Li Yingtian, the current palace lord of the cloudless heaven. Greetings, Brother Han." Although the two of them had met, there was naturally no trust between them. Because Han Fei's appearance was too sudden, it was not necessarily a good thing for the flying feather heavens and the shadowless heavens that had been peaceful for a long time. However, Han Fei and Xia Shaochan had taken out the chaotic original water anyway, which meant that they were the ones chosen by the chaotic original water, so Li Yingtian was reassured for now. Xiaoyu glanced at the people Han Fei brought, and his eyelids twitched. There were a total of 53 people. Among them, 26 were half-emperors, and the remaining half were peak venerables. How could such strength be described as terrifying? If one didn't know better, one might even think that they were envoys from one of the 36 immortal palaces. He heard Xiaoyu say, "Brother Han, since you're here, why don't you come? Why don't you rest in my soaring feather sky first? We can sit down and talk about it in detail." Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian looked at each other and invited Han Fei with a smile. But Han Fei also knew that. They invited him to go to the Immortal Palace because Xiaoyu could use the power of the Flying Feather Heaven Palace. Each family had its own Immortal Palace, which was not just for decoration. Just like the Yin-Yang Palace, it was also protected by the Heaven and Earth Natural Array. The Immortal Palace contained a large amount of energy reserves. If it was completely used, it would be a very terrifying source of power. However, if that was all, Han Fei was not afraid. Of course, Han Fei's main purpose was not to fight. What he said was the truth. This time, he searched for the immortal palaces in order of distance. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan had long planned to go to the Shadowless Heavens. Others might not know, but the two of them still remembered that they promised Li Huang to rebuild the Heavenly Desolation City and release the curse on them. Of course, whether the curse was still there or not, Han Fei didn't know. Perhaps with Li Huang's strength, he had already broken free from the curse. However, whether the curse was still there or not, he had finally agreed to it. The reconstruction of the Heavenly Desolation City was also a wish for them. After a moment, after leaving the furious hurricane, all the crew members of the Avenger boarded the ship and went to the Flying Feather Heaven. The Flying Feather Heaven lived in the sky, which was understandable. However, when everyone, including Han Fei, saw the floating island of the Flying Feather Heaven, they were all stunned. What was that? They saw that above the endless sky, a huge bird-shaped island was floating in the sky. Under the floating island, in the belly of the mountain, there were a large number of giant birds flying in and out. The arrival of the Avenger attracted the attention of the flock of birds, who flapped their wings and came over to see what was going on. Above the void, Han Fei, Xiaoyu, and Li Yingtian walked as if they were taking a walk. Han Fei asked in surprise, "Storm dragon eagles are the only birds here?" Li Yingtian couldn't help but be surprised. "Brother Han, do you know storm dragon eagles?" "Yes, storm dragon eagles used to live in the Shadowless Heavens. Later, the Shadowless Heavens escaped from the war and brought some of them here. The storm dragon eagle wasn't the only creature that could survive in the violent wind domain. The other bird-type creatures had long since perished. So, we are now in a mutually dependent relationship with the storm dragon eagles." Han Fei nodded slightly. These storm dragon eagles had different levels of strength and bloodlines. For example, the storm dragon eagle he had encountered before was probably one of the purest bloodlines among the storm dragon eagles. That was why it could roam freely in the violent wind domain. Compared with the people of the Shadowless Heavens, the people of the Flying Feather Heaven were actually much more convenient. This was mainly for those below the explorer level. There was a big difference between having wings and not having wings. Han Fei glanced around. In many places on this vast land, there were children playing in the sky. Of course, Han Fei also saw a lot of strange people. They could form wings that looked like phantoms, which were half real and half real, but there weren't many such people. As if knowing what Han Fei was looking at, Xiaoyu said, "The Flying Feather Heaven and the Shadowless Heavens have been together for many years, and the two families are as close as one family. So, in terms of marriage, they are relatively free. Some children can inherit the characteristics of the Flying Feather Heaven, some can't, and some can only inherit the wings. And those who can't inherit the wings can also set foot in the sky with the storm dragon eagle as a contractual spiritual beast." Han Fei couldn't help but smile. The Flying Feather Heaven is the most special immortal palace I've seen apart from the Beast King Heaven. On the floating island of the Flying Feather Heaven, the storm dragon eagles lived in the lower half, and the surface was mostly covered with trees. People mostly lived in the trees. The people of the Shadowless Heavens did as the Romans did, so they naturally slept in the trees. As a result, these trees were transformed into semi-residential wooden houses, a bit like the tree core city in the Wind Thunder Town. In the Flying Feather Heaven, all the transactions and human activities were done in the woods. As for the location of the Immortal Palace, it was not something that he could figure out. Every Immortal Palace should have an entrance, so he didn't need to look for it. Xie arranged for someone to entertain Xia Xiaochan and the others, while he, Li Yingtian, and Han Fei talked in detail on an ancient tree. Li Yingtian said, "To tell you the truth, Brother Han, according to the historical records, the heavenly desolation city fell into the yin-yang heaven and then into the wilderness. Since then, although the shadowless heavens still controlled the 36 towns, they only existed in name. In the chaos of the war, only the 12 towns survived. At that time, the Flying Feather Heaven took in the remnants of the shadowless heavens, which is why the shadowless heavens have survived to this day. But as you can see, Brother Han, the shadowless heavens and the Flying Feather Heaven have long been integrated. So, let's forget about rebuilding the heavenly desolation city." Han Fei certainly could see that, but rebuilding the heavenly desolation city wasn't as simple as it seemed. He said, "Li Huang, the city lord of the heavenly desolation city, planted a curse on me. If I don't fulfill my promise, I will suffer a backlash in the future." Xie Yu and Li Yingtian were both relieved. So that was what happened. Sure enough, they didn't come to him for no reason. But then, Han Fei said, "But rebuilding the heavenly desolation city is not urgent. I didn't come here just for this matter." Xie Yu asked, "Oh? Is there anything else, Brother Han?" Han Fei said, "Guys, how did the Flying Feather Heaven and the Shadowless Heavens end up like this?" Xie Yu said, "It started with the war. It's sad that they fought for treasures." Li Yingtian said, "The heavenly desolation city fell because the old man from the Grand Purity Palace broke through the array." Han Fei said with a smile, "I do have a favor to ask. Now, humans were stuck in their old ways and were trapped in the chaotic Azure Sea. Even though this place is huge, it's not a place where thousands of clans live. There are thousands of clans outside, and they can't even open the sky. But human beings are trapped here, and it's hard for us to open the sky. Have you ever thought about the unification of human beings?" Xie Yu and Li Yingtian's pupils constricted, and their hearts skipped a beat. He was obviously a warmonger. Chapter 1932. What? Brother Han wants to deal with the Grand Pure Wuji and unify the 36 immortal palaces of the human race? Xie Yu and Li Yingtian were both surprised. They knew that Han Fei was belligerent, but they didn't expect him to be so ambitious. What he said was enough to make them shiver. However, Han Fei said slowly, "Don't get too excited. Maybe you can say something else. Unite the 36 immortal palaces, reach an internal unity, and go to the boundless ocean hand in hand." Xie Yu and Li Yingtian were speechless. It was just changing the word. Was there a difference in being busy? In the world of cultivators, strength reigned supreme. It was the same no matter where one went. Han Fei's purpose of coming here was to rebuild the heavenly desolate city. He was inviting the Flying Feather Heaven and the Shadowless Heaven to join the battle. After all, after the exploration of the Imperial Palace, the human race began to fight. Some people had good opportunities and grew stronger quickly, while some didn't. The gap in strength gradually became apparent, and many immortal palaces had to live in seclusion. The purpose of living in seclusion was to avoid war. Now that Han Fei came to ask them to fight, who would be willing? Xie Yu said, "Brother Han, this is too important. It's a matter of life and death for billions of humans." Li Yingtian frowned. "Brother Han, if you want to rebuild the heavenly desolate city and lift the curse, maybe we can think of a way. Even if it's just a formality, we can help you with the relationship between the yin-yang heaven and the shadowless heaven. But we can't send our people to the chaotic ocean to fight the Grand Pure Wuji and the other immortal palaces." Han Fei didn't expect them to agree immediately. He had already prepared an excuse. Han Fei said, "You too. When I found the Flying Feather Heaven and the Shadowless Heaven, only the 10-colored heaven among the 36 immortal palaces was left. At present, There are 10 immortal palaces that have officially joined hands with me. A portion of them were just fence-sitters, sitting and watching the situation from the sidelines and looking at the bigger picture. Wherever the situation leans, that's where they'll lean. I'm not asking for the entire soaring feather sky and shadowless sky to come out, but if the two of you and the two venerable realm experts of the two palaces come out, that would be for the best. Therefore, when the human race is united in the future, the two great immortal palaces will be part of the participants and enjoy the benefits they deserve. It is only natural that they reappear and share the rich resources of the chaotic azure sea. Li Yingtian said with a straight face, "Brother Han makes it sound so easy. There are only so many experts in the soaring feather sky and lawless sky. If they come out, it would be a problem for them to survive in this violent wind domain. What future do you have?" Xie Yu chimed in, "Brother Han, although our palaces rarely go out, that doesn't mean we've never gone out before. More than 10,000 years ago, I had once secretly searched and went to the chaotic vast ocean. However, as long as I asked around a little, I would know that the few palaces of the grand pure and everlasting all had heaven-opening experts. Brother Han, I'm afraid that you're still a little lacking in terms of strength if you wish to compete with the grand pure everlasting Tao." Han Fei said, "Guys, I'm not here to ask you to get out of this world right now. Although the Taiching Wuji was strong, it was not unstoppable. One had to know that in the age of chaos, where did the human race get the 36 immortal palaces? The human race was united to open up new territories and walk out of this domain. Only when the imperial palace was born did the 36 immortal palaces come into being. The world's trend, after being united for a long time, must be divided, and after being separated for a long time, must be united. The grand pure everlasting Tao is passive and does not plan for the future of the human race. Its position should have changed long ago. You two don't have to fight for now. However, the chaotic vast ocean will be filled with blood in the future. The human race is one and we live and die together. How can you two just sit and watch the tide rise and fall?" At this moment, Han Fei's aura was extremely strong. "In the future, when we stand up, no one can avoid it?" Xie Yu was silent for a long time. "Brother Han, is the human race's internal strife worth this much? Aren't we just letting those sea demons take advantage of us?" Han Fei grinned. "Do you two think that my goal is only the grand pure everlasting Tao?" The two couldn't help but be shocked. If it wasn't the grand pure everlasting Tao, who else could it be? Han Fei smiled. "If it's just to deal with the grand pure everlasting Tao, I don't need to look for the major immortal palaces. When the human race is in danger, the sea demons are eyeing us covetously. How can this battle be just an internal strife of the human race?" Xie Yu and Li Yingtian were shocked. Han Fei wanted to launch a super large-scale expedition that would sweep across the entire chaotic vast ocean. Who knew how many people would die just from these words? Li Yingtian immediately refuted, "Brother Han, do you know how many people will be sacrificed for your determination? Not to mention that the entire human race is not in your hands yet. Even if it is in your hands, aren't you afraid that the entire human race will be destroyed? You're short-sighted." Han Fei didn't give Li Yingtian any face and scolded. "The current situation of the human race can't be built without destruction. If we don't unify the human race, the situation here won't be solved even after 100,000 years. If no one in the world can do it, I, Han Fei, will do it. Unify the human world, kill the sea demons, break the mist, and get out of the imperial palace. You too can become kings, but your minds shouldn't be like this. Even if you can't fight for the world, don't you want your people to have a better life?" Han Fei's impassioned words only made Xie Yu and Li Yingtian feel that this person was crazy. They never expected Han Fei to be this crazy. "You're just at the Pioneer Sea state. If you're at the heaven-opening state, we can believe you, but you're not even at the heaven-opening state." Li Yingtian and Xie Yu looked at each other. In their eyes, no matter how exaggerated Han Fei's words were, he was just a stranger. No matter how provocative Han Fei's words were, they might observe the situation in the outside world, but it was impossible for them to force their clansmen to fight. Xie Yu said, "Brother Han, since you've made up your mind, we'll pay attention to the future battle. If it's really the general trend, we won't just stand by and watch. However, it's too early to talk about this now. Why don't we wait and see how Brother Han fights against the Grand Pure Wuji? Seeing that Xie had spoken, Ling Tian didn't say anything. Although he didn't like Han Fei's attitude, he acquiesced. However, Han Fei said, Brother Xie, although I have the capital to fight against the Grand Pure Wuji, it's not like you two don't have to do anything to quell the internal strife here. At least, you two need to show your attitude. Li Yingtian immediately said, if we show our attitude now, doesn't it mean that our two palaces need to at least come out and meet those people in the chaotic vast sea? Han Fei said with a smile, at the right time, just send 1 or 2 representatives. You just need to prove that your lost immortal palaces haven't disappeared and can still participate in this world. Li Yingtian sneered. In the end, you still force us to come out. If you really have 100% confidence in me, why do you come to us? Xie Yu sighed. Brother Han is a guest after all. Don't be rude. Li Yingtian snorted. Han Fei, I've tolerated you for a long time. If you really want to be our guest, we'll try our best to entertain you. But what you're doing concerns billions of creatures and even the entire human race. How can you say that so casually? Alas, Han Fei sighed slightly. After all, this is inevitable no matter where I go. However, there are only a few like-minded people. Although you've reached the sea expansion realm, you're just mediocre people. One is playing the good cop, and the other is playing the bad cop, trying to deceive and avoid this matter. As human beings, you'd rather stay silent in the chaotic vast sea than return to the prosperity of the human race. You don't even want to show your face. Do you really think I'm here to chat with you from billions of kilometers away? At this moment, Han Fei suddenly stood up and stared at the sky. Since there's still a king, come out. Let me weigh the strength of the 3 of you. How confident are you that you can survive in the chaotic vast sea? Chillet Han Fei pointed his finger, and above the sky, a void vortex appeared, and a big bird emerged from it. Xie Yu frowned. Brother Han, you're too impatient. We've just met for the first time. Han Fei snorted. You've been idling all day, but my time is precious. Since I can't convince you, I'll let you know that I can also suppress you with my strength. Li Ying'an roared angrily, how dare you? You're really up to no good. You want to fight because I can't convince you? Han Fei said, don't worry. I won't kill you. I just want you to know that there are still many people who can suppress and slaughter you in the chaotic vast sea. Don't think you can muddle through for tens of thousands of years with the seemingly hidden violent wind domain. Otherwise, even without me, you'll eventually disappear in the tide of history. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.